Robbie Williams Rewind.
Welcome to Robbie Williams Rewind. We are the champions. I'm Matt.
And I'm Lucy.
And along with help from special guest fans, we take you on an in-depth rewind through the solo career of multi-award winning singer, songwriter and entertainer Robbie Williams.
We've got a bit of a different episode for you today as we're covering Robbie's Netflix documentary rather than his music. And to help us, we're joined by guest fan Chris from Kent. Hi, Chris.
Hello, Chris.
Hi, everyone.
Thanks for joining us.
Pleasure. Thank you for inviting me on.
That's all right.
Yeah. So before we hear all of Chris's amazing stories about the incredibly rare Robbie memorabilia that he owns, let's do a quick Robbie news recap.
Yep. So obviously Rob has been on the New Zealand and Australia tour.
Mm-hmm.
The most exciting news from that is that he's not wearing the gold outfit. He's got his black sparkly outfit on, and then a long gown which seems to drag along the floor and looks really heavy. But he looks good, I think.
Yeah, I like it. I like the gold when he first was wearing the gold.
Like the gold.
I know that a few people berated it, but yeah,
what
that
do you
looks
think,
good
Chris?
as well.
I think a change is good. I think I prefer it to the red football top.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
So,
yeah,
a change is good.
Yes.
Yeah.
And our friend Ruben, who was on our Life Through a Lens 25th edition episode, he attended both of the New Zealand shows, the second of which he was front row, and they were his first Robbie gigs, and he absolutely loved them, especially as he's been a fan since he was 2, and he was just ecstatic.
Yeah.
So that was nice.
And sent us some really good photos as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. And there's been press everywhere, obviously due to the documentary on Netflix, which we will be talking about. Guy Chambers also did interviews with GQ and The Times, where he gave his side of the relationship with Rob, which was interesting. And so go and check those out if you can. And then he was also on the Rob Brydon podcast recently.
Brydon and...
Yeah.
Filmed in Robbie's London home cinema room, which was interesting to see. But that's a really good podcast interview. If anyone hasn't listened to that, go and check that out. It's Brydon and on podcast channels, or you can watch it on YouTube.
Yeah, for anybody that doesn't know Rob Brydon, maybe some of our global listeners, he's quite a quirky chap, quite funny.
Yeah.
So got Robbie's sense of humour, I think.
Yeah.
And was afraid to put his feet up on the stool, wasn't he?
Yeah, he was.
Don't take your shoes off. He got all kind of anxiety watching Rob do that.
Yeah, he did. Rob was like, no, I want everyone to be comfortable. If you want to put your shoes on the couch, that's fine. But then they took them off and had their socks. It was good. It's a good watch. So let's go to Chris. What made you a Robbie fan?
Well, I think if I recall, I can remember the first 2 albums and being like, yeah, really good, like his music, like what he does. And then it was the 3rd album, because where I worked at the time, I got a pre-release of it, probably about 3 weeks before it came out, back in the days when they did things like promo CDs. Mm-hmm. And I can remember just playing that and then getting to Better Man. And obviously, by this point, I think Rock DJ was kind of out there already. So I was like, I really like Rock DJ, and then Better Man, and then just the whole album. And I think that's kind of made me then revisit the last 2 albums and all the B-sides. So for me, it was hearing that album that got me properly into him.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And do you have a favourite song?
I think you probably know what my favourite song is.
Oh, do I? Is it Better Man?
So Better Man's one of them, but Be a Boy as well. And I have to now say a massive thank you to both of you for getting me the remix of Be a Boy off Tim and Flynn.
Of course, yes.
So that has been amazing. So obviously hearing that a year ago now, playing sort of as part of their set, and then you guys actually managing to get me the remix. So I think we're probably the only 3 people to have that remix in the world, apart from the guys who made it, which is pretty incredible. But I know I don't think Flynn's a massive fan of it,
No.
but
No.
I am. So I appreciate very much you guys organising that. It is great to have it on my own system now that I can play in the car, play on my phone and everything. So massive thank you.
Oh, excellent.
So
We
yes.
might actually be the only 3 people with it, because apparently they were going to go and
They're
bury
going to go bury it.
it.
We requested it just the right time, or else it might be gone forever. So, so yeah, and I think, do you know what, my songs change. I know everyone says this, but they do kind of change as well. Sometimes you get into an album, you sort of remember a song you haven't heard for a while. If I think about kind of my top ones, so yeah, Be a Boy, Better Man, No Regrets, Feel, Come Undone. It's and there's some really good B-sides as well that, just people don't know about. People don't know enough of them. I know we've got Under the Radar, but there's a lot, and he does put some on kind of like in and out of consciousness. There was some, but there's still a lot out there that could easily have been on our album.
Yeah, for sure. And then what about a favourite tour?
Do you know what I'd probably go Take the Crown. Just because that was probably the first one he did after sort of a long time away. It felt like it was, because I know we had Take That.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't tour Reality Killed the Video Star. So Video Star, Reality Killed the Video Star. He did, so it felt like he'd come back, and actually it was great to see him playing sort of the hits. Obviously, Take the Crown as well. So yeah, that was probably one of my favourites, I think.
Right.
And have you met Rob?
Yes, several times. So I met him at the Nebworth DVD premiere in Leicester Square.
Oh.
I've met him at HMV, the signing that he did for Take the Crown. Met him at Soccer Aid. Met him quite a few times, but still on my bucket list is to get a photo taken with him. That's the one thing that has escaped me, is getting a photo with him. So it's on my bucket list still. One day it will happen. But yeah, I've met him quite a few times, and do you know what? Every time I meet him, he recognises people, doesn't he? And he picks. I can remember when I saw him at the Nebworth premiere. Like, I had obviously the famous "Sing When You're Winning" T-shirt. I've still got it now as well. It's 20-something years old. But it was under a jumper, like just the top bit.
Yeah.
And he pointed and went, "Nice top, mate." And I was like, he knew. Do you know what I mean? He knew from just that bit. But, he's, whenever I've met him, I've never ever been disappointed. I think he's very natural, and he's Rob. When you meet him, he's Rob. So, yeah. But yeah, still to get a photo taken with him.
Oh. So how come you met him at Soccer Aid? Was that not when he was doing the selfies going round?
So I met him at Fulham. So it was the very first one, the warm up that they did, and I've actually got his shirt that he wore from it as well. But yeah, and I've seen him at Old Trafford as well. But yeah, I missed out on the selfie with him.
Oh, it's a shame.
Still to come. One day
it'll happen.
It will happen. I'm going to manifest it.
Yes,
exactly. So tell us about all the unique Robbie items that you own.
Yes. So probably the weirdest uniqueness, however you want to phrase it. I own the Millennium Jetpack.
Oh.
So yeah.
How did you get that?
So someone was selling it on eBay. So they obviously bought it at Sotheby's for a good couple of grand, and I think they needed the money, and luck would have it, I won it for not that much. I think probably a couple of £100.
Oh my God.
I just happened to be in the right place at the right time, but my God, that thing is heavy.
Really?
Yeah. So it's basically like 2 fire extinguishers. It's got like if you imagine an old fashioned joystick, it's got those here, but it is heavy. Like when I picked up, I'm like, oh God, this is. So how he wore that for any amount of time, I do not know.
God.
Yeah, but yeah, it's that's probably the biggest thing I've got. I've also got from the Take That stage. So obviously you got the man that is in Robbie's garden. I think it's still there.
Yeah, it's still there.
So
not in his. It's not his garden anymore.
No,
right?
but yeah, it's.
I think he left it there though, didn't he?
Yeah. Things people leave behind when they sell a house, eh? But the main set, I've got a piece of that. So all of it was kind of sold as scrap, and then they auctioned off one piece of it. So I have one piece of that, the bit that was on the stage.
Oh, so what does it look like? What kind of piece is it?
It's like this. It doesn't look great to look at. It doesn't look like a jetpack, I can tell you that. But it's that. It's grey. It's got yellow around the side of it.
Okay.
So if you were to look at it, you kind of go, what the friggin' hell's that? But I know what it is. I'm going to explain it. People go, oh, okay. And then I think the other thing I kind of collect, if you like, is awards. So got quite a lot that I've got bought at like charity auctions. So, ones that have been presented to Robbie or signed by Robbie. I just haven't got around to ever putting them up yet, which is something I must do. But as I get more, I'm kind of like, which ones do I put up? So eventually I'll have sort of some space where I can put them up and display them, because some of them are really, really nice pieces.
So what sort of ones have you got?
So I've got Sing When You're Winning. I've got a Life Through a Lens one. I've also got a Candy MTV Awards, like a video awards. It was a little bit different, a bit quirky. And then something I'd always wanted, but kind of always out of my reach, shall we say, budget-wise, was sort of signed lyrics, handwritten lyrics. And there was a funny story when I was at Bonham's. I was there at the auction. Robbie was on tour at the time, but he flew in. I think it was 2015. So I was in the auction room when he did the actual auction, and Go Gentle lyrics were going up. So I'm there, and it starts off quite low. So I'm like, yep, put my hand up when it's like 400 quid, gets put around the room like this, and then comes back and Robbie's like, it's with you, £5,000. I'm like, no, afraid not. But at one point I thought, hang on, am I accidentally going to put my hand up, do a wink or a nod that actually suddenly I'm committing to buying them? But since then I have managed to get hold of lyrics for Deceiving Is Believing. So I've got those, and again, I just need to get them up on my wall.
Right.
Cool. Wow. You've got some cool memorabilia.
Yeah.
Some random stuff.
Love it.
So what does Robbie mean to you?
I think for me, I like listening to his songs, and he's a phenomenal performer. That's kind of, for me, it started with the music. And like we said, he's a nice guy. When he chats to people, he's actually interested in them. And I think a lot of people probably have this perception of who Robbie is. And I'm sure you've had it too, when you say, oh, I like Robbie, and they go, oh, God, isn't he this? And you kind of go, you sort of defend. And I'm hoping actually this Netflix documentary that people will kind of go, oh, actually, that's not who he is. And they actually see Rob rather than the Robbie persona. Because I think, he's had an incredible career. And I know when I first started getting into it, and I know, Lisa, you've been there from the very start, from the Take That days. But I think when I probably 2000, I remember saying to my mates, like, the state he was in, we're like, I don't think he's long for this world, really. It was quite scary back then of, do you know what? I wouldn't have been surprised if you look on the papers or you read in the news, hear on the news, actually Robbie Williams has died as an overdose or something. But I think to see where he is now and the career he's had, it's unmatched, in my opinion. I don't think there's anyone who's ever got close to him. And yet he still will always be kind of putting himself down. I think even with the Netflix, a couple of interviews, he was like, but I want to beat David Beckham. I want to beat his doctor. And you kind of go, but that's what's important to him, isn't it? It's that he's always got that competitive side of him and feeling like it's not good enough or people won't like it. But I just, for me, it starts the music, but who he is as a person. And like I say, every time I've met him, I've never kind of walked away and thought, oh, they say you shouldn't meet your heroes, but actually I'm glad I did. And I'm glad I have.
Yeah.
And if you could ask him one question or say one thing to him, what would it be?
I think it would be just to sit down and talk about his music. I love to sit down, have a cup of coffee, have a cup of tea, and just talk about his music. You know, talk about his career. But there is. So I've got one of the original demos of "Love Somebody," and there's 2 words in it. I don't know what he's saying, and I've asked him a few times on up front, and he's like, "Oh, send me it, and I'll have a listen, mate." And I still want to know what those 2 words are. So that might be one of the questions as part of our chat is, what are these 2 words? Because I just cannot make them out.
Right. Yeah. Send them to me. I'll have a listen. And
Well, I'll
I'll
play it to you if you want. I'll play it to you at the end, and you can tell you give me your view on it. Yeah. It actually uses lyrics from at the start, "Kill Me or Cure Me." So he's put
I Love Somebody.
Yeah, he's put that at the start,
Mm-hmm.
And then the rest of it's different. And I think when we talk about the documentary, there's a bit in there. Obviously, that's a very sensitive piece and I wonder if that's the original that Robbie wanted changed.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I'll let you have a listen and you see if you can get those 2 words for me.
Yeah, I'll have a go.
We'll do that.
We'll start a new game show here.
And then just backtracking a bit, I forgot to say that you were actually at the Graham Norton show.
Yes.
When we asked Rob if he would come on the podcast, you were sat 2 people along from us. We didn't know it.
There was one person between us, and he was. I think he goes to that show a lot because he wanted to make sure everyone knew what to do, where to sit, what's going to happen, which was very nice. But also, I get it that they're filming a TV show. I kind of get the idea. But I think we're actually behind you in the queue, and I think as we walked in, because some people at the front. Yeah, we hadn't really been in that studio before, and I was like, because it hadn't been on for a while, had it? I don't think.
I think it was the first episode.
Yeah, back after
that series.
After that thing called COVID. But I can remember sort of going, "Oh, do I want to be down there?" And then we kind of got sectioned up to where you were, and I was like, "Oh, I'm away from that." And then I was like, "Hang on, stage is there." And then I was like, "Nah, let's stay here. We're not moving. Stay here. Perfect." And I think it was you, and I think I kind of helped a little bit, but it was all you that managed to convince him to sing it again. It was kind of like, did it, and he sort of went, what happened was, I bent down and my back hurt, and I did this, and I messed that up. I think Graham Norton was like, no, it's fine. It's like, and he looked and he sort of, no, do it again. So we got 2 renditions of it, probably more than he did on the whole tour, to be honest.
Yeah.
That's true.
But I do love that song, really love that song, and I think, especially when I watch the documentary and you listen to songs that remind you of things, I think Lost reminds me of Graham Norton. It reminds me, it's a nice, it's certainly, I know it hasn't been, I think with Robbie, as you sort of asked him, unless it connects straight away with an audience, he's sort of like, no, I want to do something that everyone's up dancing or feels connected. But I really like that song and I hope he brings it back. It feels a little bit like Love My Life cousin. I hear that song in it so much. But let's hope, who knows, in the future he'll start bringing it out again.
Yeah, hopefully.
Start a campaign now.
So should we talk about Netflix?
Yeah. So Netflix announced the documentary on the 25th of August 2022 with posts across their social media channels saying it would cover the highs and lows of Robbie's 30 years in the limelight.
The director, Joe Perlman, was behind Lewis Capaldi's How I'm Feeling Now and Bros After the Screaming Stops. It was executive produced by Asif Kapadia, who worked on Amy, the Amy Winehouse documentary. The production company was Ridley Scott Associates.
In its week of release, the show was the 4th most watched English language TV show on Netflix globally, with 3.9 million viewers.
It was the most watched TV show in its release week on Netflix in the UK, Australia, Slovenia, Denmark and Ireland. Plus, it hit number 1 on the daily Netflix charts in Austria, Bulgaria, Croatia, Cyprus, Czech Republic, Denmark, Estonia, Finland, Iceland, Latvia, Lithuania, Malta, New Zealand, Norway, Slovakia, South Africa, Sweden and Switzerland. It also hit the top 10 in a further 29 countries.
Wow.
That was a mouthful to say.
Yeah, well done for reading all those out. That's quite incredible, though, isn't it?
Yeah, very good. And also, it has helped his greatest hits and quite a few of his albums to go up the sort of download and streaming charts as well.
Yeah, I saw it was quite nice to see on iTunes. It kind of went 15, 12. I think it got to 9, the greatest hits.
Yeah.
And then bizarrely, Swing When You're Winning did as well. It got sort of in the high end of it. I was like, oh, but that wasn't even mentioned on it. You know what I mean? So that is obviously people have got, and I think like you said before, kind of your most popular episode is Swing. So is it when people think of Robbie Williams, they do think of some of that swing music.
Yeah.
So they went for the swing album.
Yeah, clearly.
And we've seen an uptick in our listens as well. So thank you everyone who listening because of the documentary. It just shows the power of that format, doesn't it? And power of Netflix, just going global. It has a massive impact. So yeah, really good, really good. And then there was a surprise premiere event at the Pop-Up that Robbie attended on the 1st of November, the night before it opened to the public, which Rob and Ida attended.
And then obviously the Netflix Pop-Up happened from the 2nd to the 4th of November, where they played the first episode. And all 3 of us went to that separately. I went on the Thursday. In fact, I was there on the Wednesday for the premiere. Luckily, found out about it, stood outside, and just literally a few minutes after I arrived, Rob turned up to go, and I don't know what he did, but he went in there for about 10, 15 minutes or something, and then came out and obviously came back again later in the evening. So I was just randomly, luckily, there at that time when he turned up.
You've got me partly to thank for that.
I do.
If I have to play my part in this, I didn't know, but if I hadn't have given Lucy a lift to the train station, which is only a 20-minute walk from my house, but sometimes if we're cutting it fine, it's easier. I drove her down there. You wouldn't have got on that train. You wouldn't have seen him go in. You'd have probably seen him come out. I'm assuming. But, yeah. So that was nice.
Yeah. He
Great
kind
photo
of
as well.
did thank
Really
you.
good photo.
Yeah. Yeah, he did photos with there was only about eight people there, I think. He did photos with us all and just said, I hope you're all looking forward to it. I don't know what you're going to think, but maybe you need your tissues ready. Oh, maybe you won't need them for the first episode, but yeah. he said it's going to be an emotional ride. He said something like that. But what made me laugh was that while he was stood there talking to us, this family walked past on the street. And they just sort of spotted him and their heads turned as they walked and their heads stayed on Robbie as they walked past. And the woman just had the biggest grin on her face like, oh my God, there's Robbie Williams. But they didn't stop and talk to him. They just kept walking, but they clearly appreciated seeing him. Yeah. And then so on the Thursday, we went to the first screening I did with a few Robbie friends, and we watched that first screening. We got a free poster, free T-shirt,
popcorn,
yeah, a lanyard, and it was very exciting.
And you managed to not give me any spoilers.
Yeah,
either, which was very nice of you. You were like, "Do you want to know?" No, no, I don't.
And I can remember. So as I got there, I think I was probably the train because Covent Garden isn't too far from Charing Cross. As I come in, I was like, oh, it's like 5 minutes until it starts. And I was like, do I wait for the next one or do I just try and get there? So I thought I'll do a bit of a fast walk, which in London is, what a fast walk is. So I get there and do you know what? The staff there, really kind, really friendly, welcoming. It's like, look, you've got time if you want to go into this one. I was like, okay, brilliant. So they give me all the popcorn, here's the water. Now, that room was dark, wasn't it? Okay. Cinemas are dark, but they have lights. Okay.
Yeah.
This was pitch black.
Yeah, there's no lights. That's it.
Yeah. So the guy goes, look, just go straight along, keep going and go up. So I'm thinking it's a bit like a cinema when you have two sets of steps. So I can see one in the middle. I'm like, when you go in a room anyway, naturally you kind of get blinded by everyone. You think, oh, panic, everyone's. So it had already started. So I'm like, I'll just keep going straight and go up these stairs that the guy said are there. Anyway, anyone who is in that viewing, you have got the wonderful sight of me just walking straight into the wall and like almost falling on this guy's lap, where I just thought, yeah, I'm going to keep going, and I just absolutely smacked into it. Like, oh God. And then luckily, right in front of everyone. Yeah, in front of everyone. But luckily, right in the front row, there was a space in the middle. Someone put a baseball cap there and said, do you mind if I sit here, please? He was like, ugh. I was like, just got down. I just sat like this for the opening sort of 3 minutes, just going, I just walked into a wall in front of 50 people. And I was just, but yeah, it got me on the front. But yeah, it was just so, I was just like, you know, when you sort of walk something, you think, I've got more space. Yeah. It just hit me out of nowhere. But yeah, I'm sure anyone who's in that viewing, you had an amazing sight. And I hope I entertained you as much as Robbie Williams did.
Oh my God.
Oh, thanks for sharing that.
Yeah.
What a great
Luckily,
story.
I didn't drop the popcorn either.
Oh my God.
Well, you styled it out.
Yeah.
Well done. And so what did you think, Chris, of the sort of whole pop-up experience?
I thought it was brilliant. I did wonder, because probably a bit like you, it's a bit of a trek into London, and it's not like you've got a ticket for it. So I was sort of worried that I didn't know what to expect. You know, am I going to get turned away? Is there going to be... So, do you know what? Just everyone was really friendly, as I said. I just think they did it really well. They could have done it cheap, but it wasn't. It was done like, even in the middle where they got all the different videos, like VHS and TVs, and just playing. That was great. I love the fact that it had a section for each of the parts, each episode, saying, you know, this is what it was, a bit of synopsis on it. And then kind of the photos as well of Robbie through the years. And then on the floor was sort of the year and the description of what was going on. I just thought the whole thing was done really well. I love the little rock DJ bit. I had to wait for a couple of people to do it first. And then I was like, right, let's go for it. But just all of that, I just think it was a nice event. It was just a good atmosphere. And yeah, it was, you know, it was free as well. I just think, you know, you should have more stuff like that, you know, and that's maybe, you know, stuff like that would have been great as well for, like, if there's an app in the future again, if you bring back up front that, you know, make it kind of events like that. I think you wouldn't mind paying a subscription with stuff like that if you get that regularly. I just think it's a well organized, the staff were great, and I'm really glad that they did it.
Yeah, it was amazing.
Did you do your sort of rock DJ thing?
We did.
Yeah.
We did. I toyed with the idea of taking my top off, but Lucy wouldn't let me do that, so it wouldn't look quite the same, you know. But
because even the button felt like. Did you look at the button that did the fan?
Yeah.
I was like, the level of detail. I was like, is that the actual thing from the? I was just.
No, it wasn't, but it really looked
they've done a good job. They've done a really good job.
Yeah. The wind didn't do much for me. It blew Lucy's hair around, but I was just sort of stood there.
Yeah, it was the Robbie and more Robbie on the two buttons. The Robbie turned the fans off. The more Robbie turned the fans on.
Yeah.
I didn't even look at the switch. You pressed the switch. I didn't know that was on there.
Yeah.
She was in control.
Yes.
Definitely. Most definitely, Chris. I just liked all the little touches in there as well. Like there was little messages on the bathroom mirrors as well.
Yeah. Lyrics.
Yeah. And yeah, like you said, it was just so well done. I mean, on the Saturday, we were in there for quite a lot of the day and met some lovely other people as well, fans. It was...
people we know and also people who we'd never met before that came up to us and said hello. So that was lovely.
That's nice.
Yeah.
I wonder if it's because unless you knew about it from the outside, you know, it was kitted out really well in terms of all the branding for Netflix and Robbie, but would you be brave enough to go up to it and find out what it's all about? I don't know, you know, so... Exactly, yeah. But then if it was like that, then we might not have been attend because it's booked. Well, so it's that catch-22, isn't it?
Yeah, I think, like you say, there was a balance between it being need to know and... yes, this thing is free. Yeah. Because when we were stood outside looking at it, the outside was so well done. You know, the windows and the doors and everything were all decorated with the posters and things. And then there was timings hung up. So it looked as though it was like a mini musical or a mini show or something. And so I think for tourists walking along there, we could see a lot of people looking at it and then seeing the big burly security guards stood outside. And like you say, unless you knew, it's probably not the kind of thing you'd go, oh, I'll just walk in there.
And see what that's about. Because there's security on the front as well, isn't there? You wouldn't be kind of, what is this? You'd be like, oh, okay, it's clearly not for me if there's security on the doors.
Yeah.
I must say as well, I do like the branding. Like it does remind me though. Have you Mark Ronson's version, the album cover, which Robbie's on?
It is like that.
It does give me those kind of vibes.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
But I do think it's very well done. I just think everything they've done about this, the pop up, branding, stuff like that. They put some thought into it.
Yeah, it's been excellent.
Yeah, it did.
Hi, I'm Robbie Williams, and you're listening to Robbie Williams Rewind with the Champions.
And also, in terms of branding, we do have a couple of spare posters and T-shirts from the pop-up, which we could give away to a couple of listeners. So if you would like the opportunity to get those, send us an email to email@robbiewilliamsrewind.com and tell us why you deserve to win the T-shirt and the poster. And just to add, we'll probably do free postage within the UK, but if you're in Australia, you might have to help cover the postage because I don't know how much that'll cost. But anyone's welcome to enter. Just send us an email and we'll pick someone to receive those. The last date for entries is Wednesday, the 31st of January 2024.
I guess they'll become collector's items, really, won't they? Because they're not going to make any more. So,
although we must add that the T-shirts are only available in extra large.
Yeah.
And that was the smallest size they had, yeah?
Yeah. They're generous sizes.
Yeah, very big. Mine's like a tent on me.
Cool.
So I think we should move on to talking about the documentary itself.
I think we should, because I think we're going to have plenty to talk about. So,
where to begin?
Well, episode 1, Let's Get Wrecked. That's where we'll start.
Yeah. And we all saw that for the first time in the screening.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I must have watched it 5 times since. I think I saw it 4 times in the screening because we went twice. I went twice on Thursday and twice on Saturday. And I must have seen it 6 or 7 times then.
So I guess what did we think about how it started? Let's go chronologically through it. How did it?
If we go right at the start, do you know what I really like in every episode? You might have picked on this as well. It's the I am Robbie.
Yeah,
it's Robbie. Subtle in there, but I really like that. Whoever thought of it, genius. But I think it's a nice way of sort of setting it up with the Robbie Williams, but it's I am Robbie. I love that.
Yeah, that was good.
I really liked. I wasn't sure what to expect because obviously we'd seen some clips, haven't we? But the clips were all, they were Robbie. There were clips of Robbie obviously talking, but the clips were all quite. You couldn't get a feel for what the documentary was going to be like from the clips. Yeah. That's what I'm trying to say. They were good clips, but you couldn't get a feeling. I didn't get a feeling for the cinematography and the music, the music that they composed for it. Obviously, it's adaptations of his songs. Yeah. I think the composer was Chris Rowe. Incredible, because it got me from the beginning. That long, lingering background sound, the cinematic flies through the LA garden, that really sort of gentle sweeping, and I was like, oh, this is like watching like a big budget film. Obviously it's Netflix, but and it's
But it's weird as well, going back, that when it was first announced he was doing it, I think a lot of people thought it was going to be a fly on the wall documentary. Some people kind of go, oh, the camera crews are following around, they're doing this, and far from it. It was the cameras have been in his bedroom, in his house a bit, but actually it's about using that footage, isn't it, and presenting it back to him, and it's a tough watch at times.
Yes.
Yeah, definitely.
I think they've really got the contrast right. Obviously, Joe Perlman and the team have really thought about how to create a storyline and and everything about it is just creating contrast all the time. So there's like a really energetic opening piece, and then it goes into that really sort of melodic guitar, and you see the kids running across the garden at Rob's house, and immediately you're like, oh, yeah, this isn't your typical documentary. Yeah. This is going to be a bit different. Until he then says, I'm trying to sort out the wreckage of the past.
Yeah.
I'm a hermit. If I'm not on stage, I'm in bed, which we all know, including when we've spoken to him before on Instagram. And I think on our interview, he wasn't quite in bed, but he was led down.
Well, he was on he said he had been asleep on that thing that he was talking to us on just before he spoke to us. So
yeah,
it's more like a day bed.
Yeah. I remember when we interviewed Joe, he said, well, I already kind of knew that we might be in bed because every time I FaceTimed him to talk about it, he was always in bed. Obviously, the fans know that he is always in bed. Yeah. It's his favourite safe place.
And should we discuss the pants?
Well, you've put that down as a priority on our notes, so we should. We should.
I don't think that was a question for you, Matt, was it?
No, it's not a question. Come on then, Lisa, tell us about the pants.
Well, I was surprised to see him wearing just pants for the entirety of the documentary. Like, he could have had like jogging bottoms on or something in bed, or like pajama bottoms. I don't know if the pants were necessary, but as Joe explained to us, it does kind of set the scene for him being vulnerable.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, he was not when
bare.
You asked him.
Yeah,
laid bare. When we asked him that question, Joe was like, yes. It's very purposely done.
Yeah.
But I guess we also know that Rob does like just lolling about in his pants. So, you know, that's him.
I mean, I enjoyed it. I'm not complaining. But, you know, when you look on Twitter or something, that is a lot of the comments is, why is he in his pants the whole time? I also like I sort of found it kind of endearing, the way he does a little nervous laugh at the beginning and says, can we start?
Oh, yeah.
It's a definite nervous laugh there.
Yeah.
You don't often hear that from him.
Yeah, like he doesn't know quite what he's let himself in for.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that was Joe said it showed him a couple of bits, but basically he was seeing it for the first time because they absolutely wanted his raw reaction to it. And I think those of us that have known Robbie for a while, he's very good at kind of acting and putting particular emotions on his face when he wants to on stage. But I don't think he couldn't hide anything, could he, with that? You know, literally what you were saying was what was happening to him in the moment.
Yeah.
Which did make it a bit difficult to watch at times, I must admit, because I said to Lucy, I've not had the tumultuous past that he's had, but I've had a few drunken episodes where I'm pretty pleased that they're not on video, you know, so just if I had to watch myself being, you know, drunk for an extended period of time, that would be hard for me to watch, I think.
Yeah.
It'd be hard for anyone.
So that's the nearest I can sort of get, and of course it was a lot worse than that, so
and I think
really hard.
it's like, even though like, some of that footage we've seen before or seen how he's looked, like I think that contrast of seeing him from today to then, I think that's quite, for me, you know, even being, you know, big fan of Robbie, just kind of going like, wow, you know, there's that change, and you know, he did look, you know, when he's off his face, you just kind of go, especially when he's in the studio, you just kind of go, oh God, you know, it's uncomfortable, isn't it? You just kind of, and it was really interesting actually. I think it was it your interview with, I think it might have been Steve Power, where he said there's loads of footage from Life Through a Lens recording. Well, there it all is.
Yeah. I remember Steve saying something about when they recorded Teenage Millionaire, Rob was under the desk.
Under the desk asleep by his feet. Yeah.
Or when he was mixing it or something.
Yeah. So then it kind of moved on towards the Take That.
Yeah, the Take That footage. So as a massive Take That fan who devoured everything possible I could, including having pen pals sending me footage from abroad on VHS back in the 90s, I did feel like I personally had seen pretty much all of the Take That footage before. Like even the dodgy clips of Gary being a bit mean in that interview and all those bits. But, you know, I think to the general Robbie fan and the general public, they wouldn't have seen those before.
Because I think that footage would have been separate, wouldn't it? Because it wasn't when, you know, David said we should film everything. That was, right, what can we dig up to start the story here? Yeah. Before we get into all this really unseen footage that's been in a warehouse was it somewhere near Heathrow or something?
Yeah, it was, yeah.
30,000 hours of footage.
So they were in Manchester in 1990, dancing outside with Michaela Strachan. Mm-hmm. Remember her well.
Yeah, she tweeted afterwards that she had been watching it and was nicely surprised to see herself appear on it. It was a nice surprise, she said.
And that's when Robbie makes
She must get that a lot, though, because she's there at that.
Yeah.
So she must be, whenever they do something on Take That, or she must always have that footage must come up, that clip must come up. Surely.
Yeah, I would imagine so.
She's just probably never been on Netflix. That's what it is.
Yeah.
And then I think it's about that time he makes the comment about, you know, he was 16 years old and, you know, that gap's huge. And then the Jelly video makes it in, I noticed.
Yeah.
Are you pleased about the Jelly video making it in, that he's used on tour, of course? Those of you that have been on the tour have seen the Jelly video.
Except in the United Arab Emirates.
Do what you like, isn't it?
Yeah.
Oh, except there, yeah. Some parts of the world are not allowed to see nakedness. So, yeah, nudity.
Yeah. Some of the footage, like of all the fans screaming, makes me laugh. I was in one of those crowd scenes.
Of course you were.
But you can't actually see me because I was a few rows back and I'm too short. But I was there.
You didn't have Matt making a little bit of a makeshift stool back then, did you? That's what it was. That's what was missing.
Yes.
That's true.
Yeah. The footage of Rob in the hot tub was a bit hard to watch, wasn't it? When he was talking about...
Oh, yeah.
Well, when he was wasted, talking about Lord Lichfield being his neighbour, which is obviously a lyric in Handsome Man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's just... That must just have been... If it's hard for us, I think it must have been a hard watch for Rob. You know, to see yourself like that. And there being so much footage, you know, from everything you do every day, which just blows my mind a little bit.
Yeah. And then, of course, after that jacuzzi moment, you saw him going to Glastonbury.
Yes.
Blonde hair and a blacked out tooth.
Okay, did you guys get anyone saying, I never knew he lost one of his teeth? So one of my friends did, and it was a bit of a debate between her husband. She was like, just want to clarify. I said, no. I said it was just kind of blacked out. Yeah. I'll let him know. It looked good.
It looked very realistic, didn't it?
But, yeah, she genuinely sort of had a bit of an argument with her husband about, is it blacked out or not? And I, you know, is it missing? I was like, it's blacked out. Don't worry.
How did he black it out? Like, what on earth do you use?
Someone said a Sharpie or something, but...
Yeah, but wouldn't it, like, wipe off after with the saliva? Like, it seemed to last, didn't it?
After a bit, it probably would, but...
Yeah, but there's photos of him throughout the day in sort of the red tracksuit, but also in that blue T-shirt, like on the documentary, where it's, I don't know.
Put it this way, I'm not going to try it.
Yeah, I draw the line, yeah.
Oh, dear. And then he left Take That, didn't he?
Yeah.
Then you saw him in London in 95. Lots of hangovers and losing days and turning into something you didn't recognise and playing football with Liam Gallagher.
Yeah, it did look a bit of a state there, didn't he, to be fair.
Was that one of the football... Was it Mark Owen at that as well?
Yeah, he was there.
I can't remember what it was, and I can't remember what it was called. I think you even put that on the VHS, released it on video. That
Soccer
game.
6, maybe
something like that. Yeah,
yeah.
But yeah, you know, and he's sort of walking away. And I think someone says to him, "What would you have done if you weren't this?" And he's just again, he's like that walking, and he just looks unhealthy, doesn't he? And it is. That's when it's sad, and you just think. But at the time, maybe people didn't realise it as much or notice it as much, but like I said, I think it's that contrast now. You can look back and think, yeah, he wasn't in a good place.
No. And that was when he wanted to be the Gallaghers as well.
Yeah.
So he was essentially just copying them.
Yeah.
With his haircut and everything, really.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, so we saw a lot of, not nice kind of images of Rob, I guess. Just basically getting a bit lost, and then he said he needed somebody to help him with the thoughts and melodies that he has in his head, which of course was Guy Chambers.
Yeah, a guy's hair.
Yeah.
I don't remember it being that. I don't remember it being that big. I really don't.
No,
it is wild.
To be fair, he's still got a good head of hair.
Yeah,
now,
he went through,
he?
didn't he? Kind of had it short, kind of late 90s, and then. But what I thought was interesting when Guy came in, there was obviously him talking on film, but some of it sounds like it's talking. It could him be talking now, but he's very much because then suddenly you cut to him, you go, oh wow, it isn't a voiceover of Guy now. It's him like outside the studio, sitting on the steps or something, and it's like, oh wow, he was that aware then. You know what I mean? He's being very reflective, but it's literally like he's in the moment being reflective.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, that was a really good piece of footage, actually.
Yeah. I like when he's being interviewed outside the studio, wherever it is, and she asks him, who are you and what do you do? And he said, I'm Guy Chambers and I'm Robbie's MD and songwriting partner or something. And then she said, oh, what does that involve or something? And he said, how much time have you got? So, for those people that didn't know Rob at that point, that probably wouldn't have made a lot of sense. But, when you saw him then in the studio, clearly pissed. And our friend Steve Power was there as well. Yeah. So
and there's that one scene, isn't there, where I can't remember what the song was that he sung, and they kind of would say, do you need a break? Do you want to? And there's a bit of a glance between Guy and Steve that almost kind of says, we've got to work it out here. It's just it's like a 1 second look, but you can just see him almost going, Christ, what have we let ourselves in for?
But they got through it and they produced something great out of it. Yeah,
which I think is, if you think of that album and two of the songs regularly, open and close, just, his live show. So Let Me Entertain Your Angels, you think, hang on, that was in that environment, I think is incredible when you kind of reflect back and think that's what came out of that, out of those sessions, as well as sort of, Old Fried Dilated Days. But yeah, it's incredible. You think about the environment and how probably challenging it was. They created some real magic.
They did.
Yeah.
And I would, people like Guy and Steve and others that were working with him would have known that Rob was in the state that he was in, when they kind of signed up to do it. So I guess it must have been really hard, but like you say, they knew that there was the talent there and the ability there to do it. It was quite incredible to see, really, because most people couldn't do that. Yeah, most people are not able to drink a bottle of vodka or drink a whole bottle of wine and then go and sing. It's not advised anyway. It's not not good for you.
It's interesting that I think it's Rob talking now in present day, because it's a voiceover when he talks around, and Guy didn't have, he had a leak in his roof or something.
Yeah.
So he was on his last whatever, and he couldn't even afford to fix the leak in his roof.
Yeah.
So just,
it's serendipity, isn't it?
Absolutely.
That they ended up together.
Yeah, it really is.
They needed each other.
Yeah.
And
it all worked out.
I love the line as well, it's not a nice circumstance when his management are taking him off to rehab, and he says to the pap or whoever's outside, I'm appalled with the turnout. When Mike Barrymore had a problem, there were thousands outside his house.
Yeah.
I just love the fact that even in adversity and really sad times, Rob's still cracking a joke.
But then that's Rob, isn't it? And I think that's how Rob deals, and how a lot of people deal with things is make a joke out of it. But it's the way it comes to him so quickly and so naturally. I was just saying, Matt, I was just laughing, kind of like, everyone else trying to deny anything, and he's just like, oh no, do you know what? I'll face into it, and I'm a bit disappointed by the turnout, to be honest with you.
Yeah, but But then obviously the change in him when he was sober, he just looked and was completely different.
Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah.
My favourite bit was the moment with his makeup lady, Gina Kane, and she lifts his arm up and was like, Robbie is back.
Yeah.
Robbie is back. And he just looked so cute.
Yeah.
He really just, happy.
Yeah, and well,
moment.
didn't he? He looked. I think there's one scene before he went in where he's just like on the floor, isn't he? He's just lying on the floor, and he just looks knackered.
That was Old Before I Die.
Yeah, video,
wasn't it?
And then he just looked completely different. And I think that was when then they started filming the album cover and stuff, didn't it as well? And he just looks totally different.
Yeah.
So that was 97, wasn't it? When we were, it was sort of switched into 97, and then of course we get the footage of Rob playing backgammon with Steve Smiley Barnard, who's been on the show with us,
and he told us all about that, didn't he?
He did. He said he spent thousands of hours playing backgammon with Rob. I think they said it was a nice way of sort of calming and focusing before a show or after a show. So
it's interesting,
keeping him busy.
That Rob does stuff like that, like with Uno. I remember Uno was a massive thing.
Oh yeah,
you remember it was. Even his management got behind it and kind of promoted. Yeah. You know what I mean? It was just this huge thing. Everyone on tour had to do it. And it's probably interesting that he needs that distraction, that calming thing. You see another, football is the one around sort of 2006, is it, I think, tour. He's got his, so he obviously needs stuff like that just to kind of distract him, isn't it? And just chill himself and take his mind off it.
Yeah. I did note that the footage sort of seemed to be in a bit of a funny order around that era, because they kind of played a bit of the tour footage, and then everything was sort of going okay, but then they released Angels, and then everything was amazing, and then they showed some footage after a gig, and they're like, "Oh, you're a fully fledged pop star now," but that gig, because they said something about it being in Surrey, well, that can only be the Woking gig, which is which was his very first solo gig and came months before Angels.
I think there's even a shot from No Regrets, from the No Regrets shoot in there, and I'm like, no, that's not yet. You know what I mean? And I think as big Rob fans, we know, I think it's very hard, especially sort of if the footage isn't even labelled up correctly. But even something like the tattoos, it's interesting seeing kind of, because the tattoos age him a bit, don't they? You kind of go, you forget how many he's had since, and at what age and what stages. Yeah.
There was one bit around about that time of the documentary when Guy was giving him some feedback backstage. I found that quite difficult, because obviously it's Guy's job to do that.
Yeah.
He's the music director.
That's on, isn't it? Is it where Ego's there? Is it on that?
Yeah, because I've seen that before.
Yeah, I think it's on there. But,
oh, yes.
But yeah, you're right, Matt. It is brutal, isn't it? It's kind of...
It's awkward. Yeah. It's awkward because Guy's doing the right thing.
Yeah.
But then you realise it's just before he's about to go on stage. Yeah. And then Rob makes a joke about it, but clearly it's pissed him off.
Yeah. And
then the band and the people in the room make a bit of a joke about it. But what Guy does say is, you're giving 100% to the crowd.
Yeah.
Which
and of course
he's
always done that.
Yeah.
And that's always been the priority. And so when I heard that, I was like, yes.
Yeah, and that's what's made him.
Yeah. But you're right, it's the wrong time to do that. It was, and he let Guy know, it was like, this is 5 minutes before I'm going to do a show. You know what I'm saying? And it was just, yeah. And then I think someone then says, are you wearing that? And it was like, oh, God, a double whammy.
Oh, yeah.
Double whammy.
I don't know who that person was.
No, I've never seen him before.
No, I don't know who that was.
No.
And then we move on to BBC Live and Kicking. And Nicole Appleton pops up.
Yeah. Well, that was really cute, watching all the footage of them together, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And I know he said that later on, that the first time he'd been happy in all the footage was when he was on that holiday with Jerry. But he did look really happy with Nicole in those clips.
Yes, he did.
Yeah. But, you can never tell what's going on under the surface. But he seemed happy with her at the time.
He said, it was important to me to learn to become the man I was supposed to be. Did he?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was kind of weird watching the marriage proposal, wasn't it, on the phone?
Yeah, on the back of the bus.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was, very, very odd, but probably very Rob.
Was that the actual proposal?
Well,
'Cause it seemed like a joke to me.
it did
when
seem
he
like a
was doing
joke,
it,
but you just never know with him. Maybe it was, yeah.
Oh, okay.
And then it didn't really dwell on their breakup too much, did it? It just kind of said something like, and then a few months later.
That was that, yeah.
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 I guess the whole breakup thing was a bit too delicate to cover, really, in a Netflix documentary.
Yeah. And then am I right in saying that it looked as though he was flying Concorde to Jamaica? Because it said there was a shot with Mach 2 and it looked as though he was in quite a small plane, which...
Yeah, someone did say something about them.
I didn't know that Concorde had flew to Jamaica. I guess he may have not been going directly, but...
they may have just mixed those two together that weren't actually related.
Yeah.
But it was interesting, wasn't it, kind of when he was on the phone and he was just like... It was, I think, it was... Did they say something like it's like he's talking to his mum when he's talking to... And it was just... And you forget that he was still quite young. You know, he'd done a lot, but he was still quite a young guy, you know, and to experience all of that at such a young age, but he was still sort of like, you never guess where I am. I looked out and I cried.
Yeah. We've got to mention, have you been to Real? It's just like this.
Yeah. They just look as though they had a lovely time out there. Really, it's kind of what he needed, wasn't it, at that time? Needed the break.
Yeah.
Just needed to get away from even though the Paps did start following them, but looks as though they had their own space out there and they needed that.
The best bit, I think, for me in episode 1 was seeing him write Karma Killer with Guy.
I thought it would be. Do you know, I thought it would be because I know it's one of your favourites. It's one of mine as well, actually. I do love Karma Killer. And yeah, the way he sort of, and again, you see it start from nothing into no, I don't like that. It's too happy. It's not trying to be ironic. I want it to be this, you know, and it was just because they're all, and I want it to be this.
Had either of you heard the upbeat chorus before?
No.
It was quite a revelation, wasn't it? That was how it was might have been.
And I just it's just you know, when he's on that bed as well inside, it's a tiny little shack almost, it feels like, isn't it? You sort of go, because when it's filmed inside, you kind of go like that, but when you see them, and then when it rains, they're like, no, shut the window, and you can see guys no, you need to be quick on that, Rob, come on, it's, you know, panicking about all his equipment. But I throughout the documentary, I really like it when you see him writing the songs, and you see him from where they start, whether it just be a line, you know, a bit of music, and suddenly it blossoms into something. Is incredible to see.
Yeah, it is. And on Karma Killer, I did note that Rob said, I hate these...
Does Matt need to say it, or shall I?
Well, I have said it many times. But
he hates his cunts.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
But it was plural, wasn't it?
Yes.
And that's what gets me, because he's always sort of said that song's about Nigel Martin Smith.
So do you think it might be about, take that back then, about the more plural, and now he's changed? Do you think he then changed it to just being about him?
That's what I'm wondering. Or was it the other managers that he had before, after Nigel and before David and Tim? Because he did have a couple of other managers as well who also sued him. I think one of them at least did.
Because he says that to Guy, that he challenged Guy and go, no, it's because I really, you know, he really went for it. But I picked up and I was like, oh, I thought it was about one person, but clearly it's not.
Yeah, that was interesting.
Mm.
And then, of course, Teddy comes in the room.
Yes, she does. Makes her debut entrance.
There was like an audible kind of, like in the cinema when she came in, and you could actually see her face. Like everyone was like looking at each other, like, oh my God, they're actually showing her.
Because for those of you that maybe aren't like hardcore fans, Robbie and Ida have kept them fairly well protected from a very early age. I mean, there's been the odd shot, which unfortunately people have posted, but they've never posted any direct face-on shots apart from when she was at the royal wedding.
Yeah, I was going to say that was...
when the world's cameras were on her and there wasn't a lot they could do about it. But
and she ended up doing a very Robbie thing, didn't she? I think she was sort of like that, or like,
Yeah,
and I was
yeah.
just like, brilliant. Brilliant.
That was brilliant, yeah.
But yeah, it was nice to see her interact with Rob and come in
Yeah.
with her little question.
Yeah.
Question.
Question.
Who did you hate the most and why? Ooh. Okay, that's a nice question.
I do think it was very kind of Destiny's Child Beyonce question. You know, that's...
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then he goes to Glastonbury.
He doesn't. Do you know what, Lucy? Do you know what about that?
Yeah,
that
I
day
don't
at
know what you're
Glastonbury?
gonna say.
Do
Did
know?
you go there? Were you there, Matt?
I-
But you
I
can't
was
remember
there.
because you might have been too drunk.
I was definitely there, but don't necessarily remember all the moments. But I do remember going to watch Rob. And
all
now
that
that
mud.
the mud, I mean, the bit that they're driving through doesn't really even do it justice. It was a lot deeper and a lot more annoying than what you saw them drive through. It was horrible. And I must, when I've got some time on my hands, I must look at the documentary and just scan through the crowd because I roughly knew where I was standing. But it probably be quite hard to see me because I think the footage looks a little bit better quality than what I've seen before. Because obviously back then the video wasn't 4K or 8K recording. So
Because they used to have it as well, didn't they? Wasn't it put on? Was it like the Millennium CD they released in the US? I'm sure they had the video of it on that as
Right.
like
did they?
that you popped it into your laptop. No, it would have been you popped it in your computer. And It was an
Yeah.
extra, but I'm sure they had it on there because I think when they were launching me out, when they did The Ego Has Landed, I think they wanted to say, look, this is what he does over in England, you know, to try to show the crowds. But so yeah, I've seen that kind of footage before, and it's incredible, isn't it? I think seeing some of him getting himself psyched up, and you can see he looks nervous. You can see this is sort of for him. This could go one or two ways, you know. And you think about the types of bands and artists who have done Glastonbury or Reading Festival and had things thrown at them. It could have very easily turned into that. And I think it's great credit to him that is just a phenomenal kind of performance that, you know, kind of went, actually, this guy can do arenas, stadiums, and, you know, Nebworths.
yes. Yeah.
Oh, you always love seeing that, don't you?
I do. Although for anybody watching that piece of the documentary, he didn't open with Angels. He obviously finished with Angels, but because you sort of see him come on stage and then suddenly it just cuts to Angels, and you know, which obviously that's the bit they really wanted to show because the crowd were totally into it. I mean, absolutely everyone was singing it, and it's such a back in the day. Yeah, that the Glastonbury crowd was even more like unwelcoming than, you know, now it's very diverse, very mixed. The music that's on there is, you know, very varied, and it kind of was then, but main stage was a bit how do I even describe it? You had to be sort of really ultra cool to be on the main stage, and
Right.
so I think for him that was like an acceptance that, oh, maybe I am in the cool set, you know, maybe this is going to work, because he also had a mid-afternoon slot, which is a bit weird as well. It's sort of like the in-betweener slot between the acts that you don't know and the really big acts. That's quite a hard slot to be in.
It was a big risk, wasn't it? But it paid off.
Definitely.
For sure.
Yeah. And then of course we end the episode with Rob saying, I'm not looking forward to watching what's next. I didn't have the tools to deal with what's to come.
Yeah.
I think that was the teaser or the lead-in, wasn't it, to the next episode?
They probably kind of hinted at him to say things like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
To go at the beginning of and end of each episode.
Hi, I'm Robbie Williams, and you're listening to Robbie Williams Rewind with the Champions.
So episode 2 was called Nobody Someday, which obviously was the film that came out in when did that
2001?
Yeah, something like that. Can't remember the year of that.
Yeah.
And this episode is really a
2002.
bromance between Guy and Rob.
Yeah.
Yes.
with a couple of girlfriends thrown in, or wife.
I think one of the first things I wrote also was family coach.
Oh,
Yes.
yeah.
That was just like, if you think, so that was, that was in
Years
his mind
before.
then. Yeah. It's
Yeah.
strange, isn't it? And you think he's then years later, of all the people you thought he might have recorded it with, would it have been Guy? No, he did it with Stephen Duffy. So, you just think,
Yeah.
but it was there, and it was just the way he just walked along the boat and sang it.
Yeah.
It was just, he looked incredibly happy. He just
Yeah.
looked carefree. I really like that scene. Like, literally from they're messing about, jumping in the water, and then he just gets up and he's just doing, sort of miming along to it. It's just brilliant, and singing along.
Yeah, it was. That was a definite highlight of that episode.
Yeah.
So what do we think about how it reflects Rob's and Guy's relationship? This one, it's kind of interesting. It kind of shows them getting on really well at the beginning, doesn't it?
It's that, I can't remember what point it is, but it's the Slane interview that I really, and I think it kind of shows kind of how the media was then, how maybe, that Rob was being very open and honest and authentic, but it was like, no, we don't want that. Can you give us? And I was just, and then, we probably only saw the second interview. So that first part would have been, no, Rob, we don't want that. We want the whole, I'm really excited. And you can just see Guy kind of going, oh God, I don't know how to answer this. And that for me was like the first bit where I just sort of thought, wow, he was being really open, but actually no one wants to listen to him.
No.
And I just thought that was incredibly sad, to like, it's almost like he was crying out to say, I need help. I'm not in a good place.
Yes.
I'm scared. I'm terrified. I was like, no, that's not what we want to hear. Do the whole, come on, you're a pop star and you're about to play to this many thousands of people. And he just suddenly went, okay, let's start again. And I just, that one really kind of, I think, hit me in terms of, wow.
Yeah.
That's very hard to watch. Shows his incredible acting skills.
Yeah.
Because when you're feeling that crap and you can then just switch. Yeah. It makes you wonder how many times that happened.
And also it makes you realise kind of, people just didn't know how to handle things like that. Guy didn't know how to handle it, did he?
Yeah, he didn't have the tools.
Equipped.
As much as Rob didn't have the tools, Guy didn't have the tools to, how do I help you with that? And and you can see it in his face that he just, Guy, that he's thinking, I don't know how to help him. And kind of like, he wants to help him, but I don't know how to.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it showed that they had a very special relationship back in those early days. It made them both what they are today. They were very, very connected. Like Rob said, they needed each other. And obviously when they went, to France and went touring in America and did all those, that traveling together, when you're residential with someone for a long time, you form a different bond and a different partnership, don't you? When you're actually living with someone, that's a real test, actually, isn't it?
Yeah.
We've probably all tried it. When you live with someone, you really begin to really know who they are. And so for Guy, that was probably challenging with Rob's, antics and behaviours at times.
I mean, a week, a lad's holiday for a week is enough. That's, you really learn about your friends, don't
Exactly.
you? Or
That's right.
So doing that, and then, but also you're working. This is your job, as Rob often calls it. I think it's challenging.
Yeah. I love the bit when they're at Hook End Studios and Rob says, can I put shite in a song?
Yeah.
The guy's like, no, you can't put shite in a song. And you think about how many songs have got swear words in them now. But
but they wanted that to be like a hit, didn't they?
True. Yeah, you didn't want a radio edit of it.
But it was the line that that was obviously in it at some point that was interesting. When he said, I just don't like, when I meet your mum, I'll be quite polite. So clearly that was the original line. When I meet your mum, I'll be quite polite.
Yeah.
That's not in there now. It's when I rock the mic, I'll rock the mic. Right?
Yeah.
Is that right? Is that the same bit? It is, isn't it?
Sounds like it. Yeah.
Have a proper giggle, I'll be quite polite. Yeah.
Oh, that's it.
When I rock the mic, I rock the mic.
Right. Yeah.
There you go.
Now, the only reason I can remember that very recently is I had a night out at the weekend, and I haven't gone out a lot recently. And do you know what was really nice? Went to 2 different bars that rock DJ came on in both, and the crowd went wild. It was really nice, really nice. And we were at this. It was in Brighton, so along sort of the south coast.
Yeah.
And we're in this crazy thing called Bongo Bingos or something. Mental night. First prize, cardboard cutout of Robbie. Went nuts. By the end of the night, though, Robbie was chopped in half. His head had come off, but they were still clinging on to him. They were like, "No, we love Robbie. We will keep him." I was like, "Good, well done." But it was just really nice to hear, a song that is 20-something years old, and it came on, and people were just like, "Yes." Yeah, and I know people kind of go, "Oh, it's like a wedding song," but it sounded really good to hear it. Played alongside current songs that are in the charts,
Yeah.
Oh, I love that.
I can listen to a lot of Rob's songs over and over again, but I remember saying on that episode, that is the one I can just listen to it over and over again. There's nothing I get bored about.
There's a lot to it, a lot of different layers, isn't there? And
yeah. And I think it was previous Robbie rather than current Robbie. I don't quite know how to say that, but the old Robbie. I think it was him saying, I thought I wanted to write Karma Police, and I was writing Karma Chameleon.
Yeah.
I don't think he'd say that now. I reckon that was back then. Don't you?
Yeah.
And it wasn't he talking about credibility as well, or commercial success. He was. I think he's got that in his head all the time, isn't it? And I think
he wanted to be an indie band.
Yeah.
At the beginning.
Yeah.
Because he started off like that, didn't he?
Yeah.
He wanted to be a Radiohead or an Oasis, and actually he became his own. He became himself, didn't he, rather than a copy of anybody else?
Yeah, exactly.
So, then what happened?
Well, the holiday with Jerry. It doesn't actually explicitly say if they were an actual couple at any point. Like he says, we were good friends. It was very confusing because she's a girl and I'm a boy. But
they're very close, aren't they? And
well, yeah.
Were you surprised how much footage of Jerry was in there?
Yeah,
a lot.
Yeah. And it was not, and you think all of that was just there, and you know what I mean? And you just it was nice that, Jerry didn't say, "No, I don't want that. I don't." She was just, let it go. And it was interesting as well, a bit later on when she's driving the car, and I think it's Guy who's filming, and they're talking about Nobody Someday, and it's just, she looks really happy, Rob looks really happy, and it's just like, it feels like a moment in time, doesn't it? That's just kind of, and that could have been lost, and it's just quite nice that it was shared. But how much of it was shared, you do kind of feel a bit like you're looking at someone's holiday video and kind of going, oh,
it's very intimate.
It's nice that it's been put in there for us. It's fascinating to watch.
Yeah, it really is.
I did think it was interesting. And I think Jerry asked the question around, what was your first argument, or do you argue? And Guy looked a bit sheepish. And I think they're talking about Talk to Me, aren't they?
They are, yeah.
And then obviously it's on Rock DJ as a B-side, and it's sort of like, but again, it's how Guy said, "Oh, they got into Rob's head, and Rob did." You know what I mean? I'm like, you can see those sort of things there where, and I think Robbie would say that he wants that control, he wants to, and I think that was probably one of the first, maybe the first signs, not a big thing by any means, but on what was maybe to come with him and Guy.
Definitely, yeah. I was wondering whether it was maybe around that time that Phil stopped playing with them. I can't remember the exact date that he stopped, but it did seem quite early. I also really loved how Jerry was just asking so many questions. Yeah. It was like she was interviewing.
Yeah, it literally was, wasn't it? Even though she was driving. She was driving, and then she's like, and I think the Nobody Someday, I mean, isn't it interesting how that was a B-side on Feel?
Yeah.
Obviously, it's a bit like Into the Silence. Rob clearly likes it, and it has meaning to him. I think we all understand a bit better now why, because of where he was when he wrote it. That it gets on 25, put on that album. So he keeps revisiting these songs, doesn't he? He just wants to give them more exposure. But I find it fascinating watching him write that, and then, like you say, Lucy, Jerry interviewing about the song, and kind of, do you think he really wants to be noticed? Or kind of, or what's the song about? And it was such an interesting, I think, as a fan to hear him, to see how the music starts, and I found that really interesting.
If only we'd had this documentary before we did the podcast. Some useful bits in it.
Yeah, but maybe we wouldn't have done the podcast.
Yeah,
True.
maybe.
Yeah, we're going to do that.
And there's a clip in it as well when he talks about, Jerry, can you put your seatbelt on, please? I'm going to get out in a minute. And then there's been something afterwards on Netflix when he's in the taxi. There's been a document, like an interview with him, and he does the same thing. He goes, I've got a bit of thing. And I was like, I've never noticed that before about Rob. Obviously, he can't drive, but that these.
Was it in the Rob?
You knew it, didn't you? You'd picked up on it before.
Was it in the Rob Brydon document? With the Rob Brydon podcast? Was it in that one that he was telling him that he had a real thing about seatbelts?
So it's that one.
Or was it in? I think was it the one in the taxi?
I'm sure it's the one in the taxi that he was like, got it on, and I was just like, wow, whether you know that. He's obviously got certain things that he's like, no, come on, you need to put your seatbelt on. But,
like he said something. I feel like it was maybe on something else. I don't know where he has his van that he drives around in, which looks like a van, but it's actually really plush on the inside.
Yeah, basically a
and there's the
inside.
two seats that face forwards, but then there's the two seats that face backwards, opposite. And he said something like, he puts his seatbelt on facing forwards, but if the people facing backwards don't have their seatbelts on, if there was a crash, they'd just go smack into him. And so he's always like, sorry, can you put your seatbelt on? And he doesn't want it to sound like anxious saying it, but he really means it. Can you put your seatbelt on? And he says he's like, I can take all the drugs and I can like try and like almost kill myself, but you have to wear your seatbelt.
Yeah.
I can't remember where I heard that. Was it not on the Rob Brydon? I don't know. It was very recent.
I wonder if though he's from watching the documentary, I wonder if it's now coming out. You know what I mean? He's now putting it into more interviews because it's back in his. I don't know.
True.
No, you're right. He's probably more aware of it.
Yeah, and talking about it more.
Yeah.
And I don't think we've talked about Somerset yet, have we?
No.
So in 2000, Somerset, Eternity singing, and then he just belts the few lyrics out, and guys like, that was great. You better write that down.
Yeah.
That was such a moment.
Yeah.
I mean,
so encouraging, like a mentor, real kind of like that's, that from what we talked about earlier when he was sort of like, going on 5 minutes ago on stage and to that whole encouraging piece of, Rob, what you've done is really good, but write it down before you forget it. And just how naturally that song came about and
just flowed from emotion.
Yeah. And I think he's always mentioned a few times that it's about Jerry, but you do wonder if, is that part of when I release it, I can say it's about Jerry because then the press will get onto it more. But genuinely, I want to write a song for Jerry.
Yeah.
And I just thought
it never came out, did it? For a long, long time that it was about Jerry.
Well, it did say it on Wikipedia, but I could never remember or find anywhere where he had actually said it himself.
I don't remember him saying it in the early days.
But obviously recently.
There was rumours around it. But it was only recently in the tour that he started properly
confirming it.
Yeah. Hopefully it shuts some of the haters up who think that Robbie doesn't write the lyrics.
Well, you'd think, but unfortunately, you still
carry on.
When I look at like Twitter or something, you still get the idiots. Well, he doesn't write his music, and it just winds me up. But anyway, let's move on.
Yeah. What's the next moment we're going to move to in that episode 2?
Well, I guess, is it worthwhile mentioning what's not in there as well? Like,
oh yeah.
So if you think, when you're watching it as a fan, you kind of think about you think about the albums. They're probably kind of your stepping stone, like kind of where are we? What? So I think the fact that Swing wasn't mentioned, yet being kind of one of the popular, one of his most popular albums, and I think a lot of fans probably found that strange that we kind of skipped. I know this isn't necessarily a documentary for the fans, but and it's hard to fit everything into it. But I think for me that was a kind of, because I was at the Royal Albert Hall that night and it was electric. It was incredible.
Yeah.
And to not have any of that in there, I think was a surprise, not even sort of mentioned or referenced.
Yeah.
I think you were there. I think it was one of his best stage performances ever.
Yeah. And it was a show. It wasn't, I think sometimes people said, was it a bit stop-start? And right, retake that one. It was a show from start to finish. He didn't kind of go,
Right.
oh, I messed that up. Can I do that again? It is
Nice.
just a one-off. And I can, for that show, so how bizarre it was that I had to enter a lot. So there's a lottery on the website so that you could then go on and potentially buy tickets. That's how it worked. That's how hard to get they were.
Oh, it was like Taylor Swift style.
It was like, oh, okay, well done. You're in a lottery. I was like, oh, what have I won? The chance to now buy a ticket. It was like the Hunger Games of kind of step 1, step 2, and and they weren't cheap. They were 130 quid, I want to say, and that's when average tickets were like 40 quid. Yeah. Back then we weren't talking 100 quid for standing at Wembley. It was
no,
and it was. So I remember saying to one of my friends, I was like, look, do you want to go? It was like, amazing. How much are the tickets? He was like, ugh. And I was only young at the time, and I think my mum and dad actually said, "Oh, look, we'll contribute towards it because you're only young, both of you." Do you know what I mean? But it was an incredible night. So tuxedos, just incredible. And I remember my friend saying, "Oh," I said, "Look, it's going to be swing. It's going to be like nothing else you've heard. It'll be a one-off." He goes, "Oh, I'm sure they're throwing a bit of angels." I went, "Just don't come expecting angels because it's going to be like a night like no other." And at the end of it, we were just like, it was incredible. And then when it was shown on the BBC, it was so emotional. Like I had so many people messaging me going, "Oh my God," just like in tears, like just emotion. Like he looked. So it was just, I think going back to this, it's sad that wasn't documented even briefly or mentioned, because I think for a lot of Robbie Williams fans, they probably know him for swing, and that's what. Yeah.
Absolutely.
The fact that that the Swing album went up in the charts following the documentary, even though it wasn't mentioned, I think says a lot about that as well.
Yeah.
But then Joe explained why it wasn't in the documentary.
And if you want to know why, listen to that episode. See what I did there?
Very good.
No, you can carry on if you want.
Well, just that there was no footage around the gig, like before or after, to really kind of show Rob something that he hadn't seen before and to kind of get his thoughts on. So
yeah, it is a shame though. Yeah. I do agree with you, Chris. For the fans and for Rob in a way, those moments of real success should somehow be there, and they're not. But we as you said, we did ask Joe about that, and I don't think that he intentionally ignored stuff, but it just didn't quite fit into the story he was telling. But it is a shame, because I think, I mean, because you were both, I think you were both nights, weren't you, in the one last year?
Yeah.
So I think I wonder if, and I know management, Robbie, have not had anything to do with editing it, but we know that that's going to be a big key scene at the end.
Yes.
Do we think, is there something in that? I might be wrong, but is it because it's going to be in Better Man? Is that maybe why they've moved away from it? Is it going to be quite a focal point in that? I don't know. We'll find out when it's launched.
Yeah, that's a good point. They don't want to take away from whatever story that's telling.
Yeah. And then Rob talks about having anonymity in LA and enjoying that, just being able to wander about and be himself. And they talk about the 5th album, is it Escapology? Mm-hmm. And then we see Chris Briggs in the video.
Yeah.
Yes, who's been on the show. And then there's a bit of a turning point in the story here, because you can see the tension rising between Guy and Robbie.
Yeah.
And Robbie talks about losing chemistry, and this is the last album we're going to do together, and Guy melted. And yeah, that was tough to watch, but obviously, Robbie'd made his mind up at that point, hadn't he? It was really... Various things happened. And
what did you guys think? Because you've interviewed a lot of the people who were involved at that bit, and you've heard there. So was it quite interesting for you, having heard firsthand from those people, and you probably got extra bits that you didn't kind of put on the podcast? Was it interesting then to see actually that environment as it was, and you've heard it from different perspectives, to then see it sort of played out?
Yeah, really. Like when he was shouting "fuck off" at Guy, that was hard to watch, wasn't it? And the way he was saying about the gospel choir on Love Somebody.
Oh, yeah. We spoke to Steve Parr about that, didn't we?
Yeah. Well, I think Chris Briggs mentioned it as well.
Oh, yeah.
That was really awkward to watch as well. I mean, you could only really hear Rob's side of it, wasn't it? Couldn't you? I think he must have been able to hear someone
Yes, because it was the
replying in
recording
headphones.
they were playing back. Yeah.
That was awkward. So yeah, you could just feel the tension, couldn't you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it started
Yeah.
with obviously the Come Undone.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then kind of the choir, which was Love Somebody, and then you could just see that kind of tension, couldn't you? It was uncomfortable again to kind of watch that. It'd be interesting to know kind of how Guy felt watching that as well. You know, back, because that's bringing, as much as it's for Rob, it's for Guy, and that's just that tension in the room. It's just incredible.
We'll check in with Guy when we interview him.
Hopefully, yeah.
When it happens, it will happen. Yeah, it's tough, that part, isn't it? But obviously, again, the story, they're moving towards the end of episode 2 at that point and kind of setting us up for episode 3.
Yeah.
Guy clearly has a story around that as well at the time. I'm not so sure whether that's been so well told. I'm not saying that Robbie's story isn't the story, but there's always 2 stories.
Yes.
And clearly they were having communication problems at that time. I wouldn't go any further than saying anything else because, when Rob says he didn't like that bit with the gospel choir, well, probably he should have been told, but who knows the series of events that actually led to that.
Yeah.
We know that Rob doesn't always like being in the studio for long periods of time. We've been told that by everybody we've spoken to. He doesn't really enjoy the process of recording. Maybe now he does a bit more, but I know back then he hated it.
Yeah.
So
they were probably getting on with it. And
so things like backing tracks and BVs and additions, yeah.
Do you want to? Because I've got the lyrics here of the original. If this is the one that they're talking about.
Okay.
So as I said, it's got a bit of Kill Me or Kill Me, which is 2000 released. That's the opening bit.
Yeah.
So this is the demo version I've got. Is My Love Life's Gone Stiff. Don't know who I've been with. I'm taken because they want to give. Can you blame me? So that's the bit from Kill Me or Kill Me. The racket's getting tired. New balls will be required. My muse has just been fired. She said I'm too easy. She's always had it in for me. She never told me why. Then it'd be the chorus. And then interesting, it's got Elvis. Grant me serenity. These demons haunting me. Forever taunting me. Why aren't they leaving? Now this is when I don't have the 2 words. So Rob, if you could tell me. So I was something and something. The part I must have missed. These tattoos on my wrist stop me from bleeding. Who the hell do you think I am? Do you think I really give a damn?
So they're the original lyrics that weren't used. And where did you find those again?
So I've got it on a demo recording.
Right.
I remember talking to Guy about it, and he did sort of say, like, Robbie doesn't like that song. And I think he doesn't like that song anymore because probably of what we've seen on that episode in the documentary.
Yeah.
It's probably bringing back that. I think that's probably what it is.
Yeah.
I'm guessing, but if he thinks about, actually, that was a time when me and Guy broke up and it wasn't in a good place. Because I don't think he's ever really sung that song since.
I don't know if he's ever done it live, has he?
No, I don't think so.
Also, on that point, he didn't want to sing Eternity ever.
Yeah.
I wondered whether that was because him and Jerry broke up and it was too painful to sing.
I often think, and it's association, is it? Whether now he's in a good place that, because what's interesting was he talks only that he thinks it was her who was tipping off the Paps. So, and that's what he thought in his own mind. Has he now got to a point where actually he's accepted that and that wasn't the case?
Yeah.
That actually...
So now he can sing it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's probably, it's probably in the same way that we probably all got songs by whoever it might be that if you hear it, you go, can't hear that. But it could be that, you've heard it at a funeral and I don't want to hear it right now, thank you, because... Or it could just be you're fed up of it. And if you're an artist like Rob and you've got people who are asking to hear songs, but you're like, no, because when I wrote it, it was about this, how I was and who I was as a person, that probably very hard, isn't it, to then perform it.
It is.
And people going, this is lovely, we love it. And you're thinking, yeah, but for me, when I wrote it was about this and I wasn't in a good place or I haven't dealt with that yet. So for me to sing it is not good.
Yeah, true.
For sure.
So shall we move on to talk about episode 3, Close Encounters?
Yeah.
So Chris, tell us, what did you think about the opening of this episode?
So do you know what I really like as well? It's just the cliffhanger the end of episode 2, going into
Right.
this, is that view behind Nebworth.
Oh yeah,
Just incredible.
yeah,
Like, even if you were there, just seeing that from that perspective, I was just like, Jesus, just wow. How do you prepare yourself to go out and do that? Like, for one person, if you were a band, okay, you maybe, but for one person, and I'm going out and I've got to perform. So I just thought that was incredible. And then, going into sort of episode 3, just you could see kind of it carrying on from episode 2, can't you? And kind of that relationship, and his sudden change for Rob.
Yeah, it was really, really fascinating when the screens opened and just seeing him hanging there, and
because he always talks as well, and I think that's the start of his going out and only Rob being there, not Robbie, and it's like, hang on, Robbie's in the dressing room. Rob can't deliver to this amount of people. And there's that famous bit, isn't it, where he says, "Oh, good, right, I'm back." And he says it out loud, but everyone at the time had no idea what he's talking about. Like, what are you on about? You're back in front of it. But that was him sort of going, great, Robbie's back, and I think you can start to see some of that happening within this episode, can't you, of him losing himself.
Yeah.
I love the famous quote. I mean, we've all heard it before many, many times. "This is what I do for a living right here. I'm a singer, a songwriter, and a born entertainer." And then there's obviously in that opening piece, there's also a lot about what was happening in the British press at the time and how just absolutely horrid they were being about what was such an amazing record-breaking event.
Yeah.
They were still out there berating what was
Bloody
going on.
enemy.
Yeah. He said, "I believe my press. Unfortunately, my press was the British press." It's so sad, isn't it? Wherever else when he went into mainland Europe, he didn't get it. I mean, I'm sure there were some perhaps following him, but he just didn't get that kind of derogatory, snidey undercurrent.
I remember there was a review that Rob talked about Enemy, as you can imagine, where I think it was after he launched Escapology, and there was a bit where the review said he's only really got 4 or 5 good songs. And actually, Rob was like, "Oh my God, they think they're digging me, but wow, they've just said I've got 4 or 5." He was sort of taking they've said I've got 4 or 5 really good songs, and it's the Enemy are like that, aren't they? They kind of you'll do a review and it's sort of and we'll talk about later on. I think we'll talk about Rubox, but it's just it is that press piece, and I think. You are always built up, and then they want to start to see, well, how do we bring this person down?
Yeah.
Hi, I'm Robbie Williams, and you're listening to Robbie Williams Rewind with the Champions.
And then obviously the bits with Sophie Ellis-Bextor, Joe Wiley, and Nevermind the Buzzcocks.
Oh yeah,
that was hard to watch.
See,
because
this is where you said earlier that it's out of sync. So I think that was 98.
Yeah, so do I.
So I think she's maybe talking about Millennium.
So it was a lot earlier. It was like 5 years earlier.
I think she's reviewing like Millennium.
She did confirm. Yeah, it was 98.
Yeah. So again, it's sort of because she looks very young. I thought, hang on, that's not this time because she'd started her career, as a solo artist by this point. So I was like,
right.
But it is, it's nice that she's since come out and publicly apologised. And obviously they're working together. I think she said they went round for lunch and stuff. So I think it's just great. Yeah. And I think she actually said they've done a couple of songs together.
She did.
So I was like,
yes.
Which excites me. Yeah.
But yeah, I think, the way she said about it, I was just like, it's almost like, hang on, we can now get on this bandwagon, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
It was a definite bandwagon. Definite.
Yeah.
I think it was so many people climbing on that bandwagon. It was full of idiots.
Yeah.
and actually people that weren't idiots, they were just joining in. And it's not a very nice part of human nature that kind of reminds me of all sorts of horrible things where people start saying things because everyone else is saying things and believing things because everyone else is believing things.
Yeah.
That's not a nice way to go at all.
But I can seem to remember, I think Robbie and Sophie had a bit of a spat back in. I think they were.
Yeah.
But again, that typical thing of being, interviewed by someone, throwaway comment, and then suddenly the press bring it up.
Yeah.
But I think Sophie's great. By the way, I think she's a great artist and super surprised but grateful that her and Rob are working together. I think it's brilliant.
Yeah. Same.
She's got a fantastic voice, and she does what she does so well.
We all said silly things when we were younger.
Yeah.
Not that that's necessarily an excuse, but when you're young and you're in the limelight and you're in a show where you're supposed to be critiquing cool music, maybe that's the thing you thought you should say.
Yeah, probably.
I'm not excusing you for it, but obviously they've made up now. But it's that typical British thing of building someone up and bashing them back down again. I mean, I can only imagine I can't imagine what it must be like. It's a bit like me being at work and having really great performance reviews and saying you're doing really well, and then loads of stories being written about me about how I'm not doing really well. Now, I don't know how you can reconcile that in your own head.
Yeah.
It doesn't work.
Yeah.
It's real head fuck. Yeah.
So then moving on to Rude Box and Close Encounters.
Well, did you spot as well when the intensive care stuff? Did you see?
Yes.
Did you do what I did and pause it when it showed the original track listing?
I did.
So
a million more years.
Yeah.
Did you spot that?
Yeah. So we've got Black Eyed Pete, Bouquet, as songs that I don't know what they've come down as before or been released as before. So and then everything else. So originally there was 15 tracks they had. I found it odd that radio was on it, which is when I started to say, was this footage 2005 or 2004? Because radio was
2004,
because it said 2005, but I think again it's earlier because maybe originally radio was going to go on the album and then they went, no, let's do it as greatest hits. But they had Meet the Stars was going to be on the album originally, which I absolutely adore that song. A song called Everyone Needs It Baby, which I think is Sin Sin Sin.
Yes. That's
so
right,
renamed, but Don't Say No. So the advertising space B-side. Don't Stop Talking was going to be on there, but that was released through T-Mobile as a download.
Oh, yeah.
So, they put, it was an interesting sort of what they originally were going to have on it, whether or not they would have gone with 15 anyway, because the original album was 12.
Yeah.
But I've not heard Black Eyed Pete or Bouquet. Maybe you guys know if that's been released.
No.
Whether I was trying to think, could that be anything else? But
no, I don't think so. No.
And obviously Black Eyed Pete, play on the Black Eyed Peas, but I wonder if it's about something to do with his dad as well.
Yeah.
So I did notice that. I was like, pause, gotta just sort of check what songs are still in the Robbie vault that we don't know and haven't heard.
Yeah.
So we must make a note of those for our next interview with Rob. And we can ask him.
Yeah.
You may not want to answer, but you never know.
You never know.
Yeah, we'll ask him.
He has played a couple of songs that he recorded with Stephen Duffy on Instagram Live, but I don't think any of them were those.
No. I think the ones that were missing are Make Me Pure, Your Gay Friend, and King of Bloke and Bird. Obviously not on that.
Yeah.
But whether or not that was just a writing session or the album, I don't know. But I had to sort of go, right, which ones have we got on here that we haven't heard, we don't know about?
And before we move on to Rude Box, there was another element that I remembered from when Rob was backstage and they were doing like stage inspections and stuff, and then he was saying, I've reached the zenith of my success. I've got my own jet with Robbie Williams symbol on the back. And then he stood behind the stage saying, look, I've got 93 trucks.
Yeah.
93 trucks. I've really made it. These are all for me. All these trucks are here for me. Just like that bit.
So going on to Rude Box, kind of the bad reviews start with Victoria Newton from The Sun. But obviously in our interview with Joe, he told us that Gordon Smart, the bizarre columnist and now Radio 5 DJ, when he spoke to Joe on Radio 5, he admitted it was him that wrote that piece, not Victoria, because
really?
Victoria was on holiday.
Wow.
So Rob's there slagging off Victoria Newton in that paddling pool.
But then but then why wouldn't, if your name's attached
It's
to
got
something?
her name at the top, hasn't it? So.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
But Gordon, to give him his credit, he did apologise and say, "I'm sorry, Robbie, for causing you pain," or something like that. And he did say that his wife has been a fan since she was 11, so clearly she won't be allowing him to slag him off anymore.
Yeah.
But I think that tour as well, it was nice to see Josie, David, Johnny.
Yes.
And there was one bit that I think is kind of, so he's got to go on, when he came up and it was Radio he started with, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And he's on that board. I just can't imagine, what is that like, that you've got all these people, there's a huge crowd out there.
Yeah.
Everyone's chatting to you, and then you have that probably a minute, I don't know how long it is, of you're being wheeled across underneath the stage.
Yeah.
Like, what must that be like?
when
I
you're
think
feeling
that's
nervous.
just, you've gone from this and that to just being alone going, I'm about to pop out up through the stage. And do you know what I mean? I just thought that must be, there's not many people who are going to experience that in their lifetime.
No.
But just incredible.
Yeah.
And then he's obviously performing Rude Box, or they're watching a clip of him performing Rude Box, and he wants to fast forward it.
Yeah.
I felt, honestly, it made me feel so sad at that point. He said, and then Joe goes, why? And he goes, it's just uncomfortable, whatever.
Yeah.
That was difficult because Rude Box meant a lot to him.
Yeah.
He'd written it with his mates from Stoke-on-Trent, who obviously we've had on the show, and he really believed in it. And,
And he actually does still like it.
And so do we.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's, Rude Box, fantastic album.
Yeah.
And I think anyone who isn't a Robbie fan or has been and they'll go, oh, but Rude Box. You're like, have you actually listened to the album? And I don't think they have.
Completely misunderstood.
She's Madonna,
completely.
Love Light, We're the Pet Shop Boys. Even they're such good songs, such amazing songs. It was just brave enough to do something a little bit different.
Yes.
But The Enemy did give it really good reviews at the time.
Yeah.
Which is really, they were like, this is fantastic, all this. And I'm like, but do you know what? I think watching this, and I know people had the debate a lot of what would have been different if Rude Box wasn't the first single. Everyone thinks it's Love Life. But then watching this and seeing kind of where Robbie's career has gone, you think, this would have happened at some point. The press would have gone. So do you know what? It was always going to happen. And I think kind of what Rude Box did was allow him to go, I'm having some time away.
Yeah.
And that's then when he found Ida and, and he sort of think he needed that. What he needed was someone to say, right, take a break. And you think about a lot of artists these days, their management companies actually say to them, have some time off now.
Yeah.
Because you can't keep doing that whole cycle of write, record, release, promo, tour, and then do it all again. They can't. So I think he needed that break. And it's just sad that the break happened in the way, or he was kind of forced into that break by himself almost going, I want out of this because it's just horrible.
Yeah.
And obviously they were beginning to build it at that point, weren't they? Where they were sort of, I've noticed in my notes, they were started saying day 49, Berlin.
Yeah.
Day 54, Munich, day 71, Vienna. And I've only just realised it now looking back that they were beginning to build to the fact that he was on quite a very demanding schedule, wasn't it, that tour. And I love the quote. Well, I love the quote, it's probably the wrong way of saying it, but I really like the quote. A lot of things happen in the body because of what happens in the mind.
Yeah.
So true. And his mind wasn't in a good place, and therefore his body wasn't in a good place, and he was putting himself through it night after night. And then, of course, there's that really horrible scene with him being injected with steroids.
Yeah, and that I really felt for Josie because ultimately he's the boss.
Yeah.
you know, and she's saying, please don't. And he's like a child. He's like, oh, please, Joe, just you know, I want them. It's this. And she's like, no, because not the steroids, because you feel lousy. And he's like, no, but I want them. I need them and all this. And then the doctor comes along. And then, of course, we cut to the next day and he's just like, I feel rubbish. I feel crap. And it's like, so I really felt for Josie then, because I think, you know, she's been such an important part of kind of building Robbie and supporting Robbie. And that must have been really tough to be able to, this isn't right for you, but ultimately she couldn't stop him.
No.
And it was just, how do I limit some of that? But yeah, I agree, Matt, a tough kind of like, oof.
But even Johnny tried to stop him as well.
Yeah.
But...
Was it, he said, oh, your uncle Rob's being a knob or something, wasn't it?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Nothing was going to stop him by what it seemed.
Yeah.
And then there's a bit of a discussion going on with Robbie about Johnny about how far through the tour they are.
Oh, God.
And they're like, no, don't tell him, don't tell him. He doesn't need to know. He just lives in the moment. And then he's like saying
halfway through,
or 60%
2 quarters.
through.
Yeah,
two fifths or whatever it is. Or
because it's two. No, it's not half. It's 2 quarters, and you can see Rob suddenly goes. Yeah, I love that. David said a lot as well. We don't talk about the end. We talk about day by day.
Yes.
Yeah.
You know, so obviously he knew that it was going to be hard for Rob,
and that's very much I think like an Alcoholics Anonymous type. You know, let's take each step at a time, each day by day, and so I think that was how he was living his life at that point, wasn't it? You know, just getting through a day was a positive thing and an achievement, and actually thinking too far into the future freaks him out.
Yeah.
So,
and what did you think of the fact that there's that footage of Rob, and he's got his blue 74 Adidas, but he's talking in that moment. So talking in 2006, or 17 years ago, about his feeling then, and yet it felt a bit like Guy in the other clip where it felt like, oh, he's talking about it, but it's like when it kept cutting to you, go, no, this is him there and then, being very authentic, being very real, being very open and honest. And I'd love to know who was filming that, and you know, that was his cry for help, wasn't it? And that was just really sad to kind of see him kind of going, being very sort of candid to the camera, but kind of like help.
Yeah. And he said, I think it was day 85, he said it was a perfect storm for poor mental health. I'm terrified to return to the UK. I'm divorced from the land which once was mine physically and mentally. And I was just like, oh, that's just horrible.
Yeah. On this episode, so I've, again, like you, I've had quite a lot of people know I'm a Robbie fan. We had it at our wedding. We had sort of, you know, so everyone who came, if they didn't know men, they did, so we had albums on each table. We had lyrics on each, so people knew if they, so I've had quite a few people message me and go, what did you think? Or I've been in tears, but there's a message, so from someone I know who sort of has mental health condition, and she messaged about this episode in particular. And she said, I'm off today, so there's a day off, and I'm watching the Robbie doc on the Leeds gig part. Poor bloke, it's heartbreaking, especially knowing exactly what those feelings of self-hatred are like. God knows how he got on stage. I'm learning so much about him I didn't know. You know, and she goes on, it's definitely an eye-opener and given me a newfound respect for him. And she's had some really tough times and really had to dig deep. I totally get that he switched on the persona but was dying inside. I cried through most of the episode. He's an amazing man. It's so good to see him finally happy. I get why he did it. Numbness is better than terror. So I just thought it'd be sharing that is kind of from someone who's can sort of understand or empathize better with what Rob was going through. And then, you know, kind of summarizing the whole documentary, she sort of said it's good for men, especially to see him open up, and I think it will help them go for help as well. It's often the last person expected who has those inner demons, and I've just quite powerful. And I think in some of the interviews that Rob has done about the documentary, he talks about kind of his rucksack being emptied of baggage and how it was quite a tough process, but I think it's helped him a lot as well. But just how he's watched it, I do not know, because some of it is just harrowing, isn't it, in terms of where he was mentally.
Well, thank you to your friend for sharing that quote and allowing us to use it on the show. That's really special, because I was thinking, even this was in 2006, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So even then, it doesn't feel that long ago. But back then, if we cast our memory back, people weren't talking about mental health like they're talking about it now. And it wasn't accepted. It was still very taboo. And I think a lot of people put Rob's problems down to addiction, which is it's all linked together. But at the time, people were just passing, he's just got loads of money, he's getting drunk and doing drugs. You know, he's all right. Actually, wasn't all right at all. And it just shows. So
because it's only very recently, isn't it? The last, 5 years, maybe a bit more, where he has started to talk about it. But you're absolutely right, Matt. And before it would just be, he's a drug addict, he's an alcoholic, it's this. It was actually, he's now been quite open about it.
I think one of his Instagrams recently was that I had mental health problems before it was cool, or before you, or something.
Which again is a typical Rob thing to put on it, isn't it? And and he'll say about, I've had all the icks and all the, I've got them all, and and I think later on we talked around what prescribed drugs he was on. He says all the greatest hits. When he's listing them, it's things like that I think he has to bring that Rob humour into it, for him to be able to talk about it in the way that he does.
Yeah.
And then, of course, we get to our build-up of all of this is to day 92, which was day 2 in Leeds.
Yeah.
And
which
he said...
we were at.
We were there, yeah.
Yeah.
We were. And he said, I'm not looking forward to seeing this. And because it was actually being filmed and beamed live into cinemas and homes. And he said, it's something like 42 million people watching. And he just didn't want to do it.
No.
Yeah.
And would you have known anything at the time, being in the audience?
I didn't.
Lucy says she didn't. I do remember, we didn't know him as well back then, but I do remember him. I did catch the odd look of him looking really quite petrified, but then sometimes he does that anyway. Sometimes he puts those faces on. So it was a bit of, I wasn't sure. The thing that really told me was that last slow shot that panned away from him. It's the defining shot of the whole film. I think Joe says it in our interview. That face, he wasn't hiding it there. He couldn't.
Yeah.
He just looked absolutely petrified.
And I can remember the first time I saw him in 2001, Milton Keynes, and blew me away. Fantastic, simply incredible. And then at the end of it, he goes, sorry if it wasn't that good tonight. I'm not feeling very well. And you sort of go, if that was you not feeling well, do you know what I mean? Wow. But
I know.
So he has got, he gets something from somewhere, doesn't he? But I totally agree. That shot was just kind of, and totally in contrast to kind of the Nebworth one. When you sort of that opening, you go, oh, wow, to this, and pulling back, and you sort of think,
Yeah.
And he had no choice. If he was told by his management team, if he didn't go on stage, it would cost them more money than he's got.
Yeah.
And it would cancel, and and then everyone else's livelihood would be on the lines too. So, I mean, the pressure of that.
Yeah.
So you're already feeling terrible. You already don't want to do it. Then you're given some information about how it's going to affect everybody else.
I think it's because it was being beamed live on Sky. There was all that added pressure.
Because did Johnny say, was it Johnny said, oh, Tim's in tears?
Yes.
And, that would have hit Rob as well. I think he said, oh, he's the most stokiest. And it was like, oh,
Stoic.
That's it. Yeah, sorry. He's like this. And it's like, oh, hang on. Do you know what I mean? If he's crying, that's a lot of emotional kind of, but that's the moment I sort of thought, wow. So he knows he's not got any option. It was just like,
yeah. My one quote that I took from that episode that makes me feel sad is, what the whole Rude Box thing did was fuck up my intuition for up until now. And so kind of, before he'd always just write music and enjoy music, and and then since then he's obviously felt more nervous.
Well, we've talked a lot about it through our podcast. he is a creative experimentalist. He's an innovator. He likes doing things that are different. He likes experimenting. And if you look at a lot of artists now, they all experiment, try different genres, and he tried it at the time, and of course got berated for it because of kind of who he was and the position and everything else. And now I think he's got a bit of that. Well, I guess the fans know that he does exercise that experimental side. Now we get, we had the B-sides, now we've got Under the Radar.
Yeah.
We know there's 400 other songs that are out there that we may never hear. So he is experimenting, and he is doing that. But like you say, he's probably carries it with him a bit. Yeah.
But then I think he does, swing. You could argue as that. I bet his record company was scared shitless when he said, "I'm going to do a swing album." They probably thought he's trying to get out of his deal. What the hell is going on? And you've got to take risks. Even probably his Christmas album. But how you think how different that is. Yes, it's got covers, but some of those original songs are phenomenal. Do you know what I mean? He does. I think Under the Radar, we do definitely need more of that.
Yes, we do.
If I think about when was the last probably traditional album it's probably Heavy Entertainment Show. Probably if you take away Christmas,
2016.
Yeah. So actually, if you for sort of everyone else out there, there isn't as much Robbie out. Whereas for us, we know kind of the other songs that are out there, but we would like some more, please, Rob. Let's release them.
Well said, Chris. Well said. And before we move on to episode 4, I love the way that episode finishes with Rude Box.
Yes.
Yeah.
Over the credits.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah. Yeah.
Whether you love it or hate it, it's in the documentary. Yeah. Brilliant.
Yeah.
In full.
Love that.
For posterity. So I think that's a good thing. So yeah, episode 4, Cut the Circuit.
Yeah.
What did you think of the opening of this one then, Luz?
Well, he kind of said, yesterday with Leeds I had to experience an awful lot and I feel as if I'm wearing it today.
Yeah.
It was a prolonged car crash.
Mm.
So instantly you're kind of like, oh,
Yeah.
And then that 2007 video blog.
Oh,
blimey. That was
and
that's
painful.
Another really hard watch of the whole lot, isn't it?
And going again back to that, like you said earlier, that natural reaction that Joe wanted. It's that horrible look on his face where he's like, I don't recognise this.
Yeah.
When was it taken? What year is it? And I was like, he's just looking like, and it must be horrible. Imagine seeing a video just having you think, I have no idea where this taking place at all.
Just no reference point for it at all. That's got to be quite scary.
Yeah. And then he talks about his stare, doesn't he? That's not my stare. When he freezes it, it's just...
Oh.
Yeah. I think his eyes were facing different ways, weren't they? Yeah. It was very uncomfortable to watch. I felt like I was watching it kind of almost hiding under the blanket.
Yeah. Because this is where he wasn't around. This is when he started to hide a bit. So it's sort of all this stuff that's out there that we don't know about. And you just think, wow. Yeah. Difficult watch.
Yeah. And it was just shortly after that you had the altercation with the bathroom floor.
Oh.
He slipped and took out the light switches.
We couldn't even remember what that was. He goes, "What's the light? The light button thing?" What you think? Wow.
And then going to rehab. I'll always remember that day because it was Valentine's Day, and I was at work in London, and we went to see Wicked at the theatre in London on Valentine's Day, and I was pregnant.
Yeah.
And I had terrible morning sickness, felt awful. Yeah. And I remember being on the train after work, reading the newspaper, maybe the Evening Standard or something, and just reading about Robbie going to rehab and just feeling absolute like hell. And it was, I can still remember how I felt and how
Did you burst into sobs of tears?
No, because I was on a train, so I didn't. But it was just, it was not very nice.
And was it, because he'd met Ida briefly, hadn't he? They'd done...
Yeah, he'd already met her by then, hadn't he?
Yeah, because they talk about they didn't really get on. So they're like, I just love that story of we'll meet after the dinner party. Now we're not really. I'll drop you off, and then because they both relax or kind of let their guards down, they go, actually, quite like each other. You're my kind of person. And then Rob stays, but then he takes drugs, and then this is when he talked about he had a tic. And I think Ida says he was clucking, and you just think, oh God. But even then, she talks about him being at that start his soulmate, which I just think it's just. I think that's, if someone's going through that and you're saying they're soulmate, then yeah, they are. Because if you've seen him at his worst,
exactly,
you deserve him at his best.
Yes.
But was that when that announcement, was that when it was the Brit Awards when Take That were winning? And that was of course, that was the story the press were doing, wasn't it? Was it a publicity stunt?
Yeah.
To try and upstage Take That, which you just think,
no. I mean, it's possible that he was at home depressed because Take That were winning loads of awards, but he was well on the way to being in that situation way before the Brits, I'm sure.
Yeah.
I think it was nice that there was that focus on Ida. I've got a lot of notes here. There was a huge bit, wasn't there, on their relationship and her speaking very frankly about, how he was and how she was sort of nursing him, and she saved him.
Yeah.
I mean,
absolutely.
She deserves that point in the story to be told, because she did absolutely save him at that point. And like you say, for someone to see someone at their very worst in that way, I mean, God, that requires a strong person.
Yeah.
Even if it's someone you've known for a long time and they're going through a challenge, that's hard. But someone you've only just met.
Yeah.
Yeah. and there's a couple, there's a line he says, watching it now, and he says, was it just better if I passed away? Which I just think is just and then some of the news, the news articles talk about, did something silly, in Robbie's words, I've gone to rehab before I do something silly. And I just thought, yeah, he's at his lowest, but had met Ida at this point, you know what I mean? Yeah. So it's, Christ, if she wasn't there and to sort of help him through that, you just think, would he still be here now?
No. Yeah. It's hard to imagine, really. I really liked Kelvin and Danny seeing the holiday photos with them in like Egypt and Morocco and everything.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
That was nice.
At this period of my life, I know I'm retired.
Yeah.
That's what he said.
And he talks about a photo, doesn't he, of Ida, that it just, like the energy in that one photo is burned into it. I think that's just...
The Calvin took, yeah.
It's incredible.
Yeah. And that's beautiful when he says he had enough space between him and his career to fall in love.
Yeah.
He didn't know it was happening, but it was happening. And then he realised that it happened. It's cool.
Yeah. And we move into Reality Killed the Video Star.
Yes.
And I loved seeing Rob
or
singing.
Polite Box.
Yes.
Or Robbie Williams in The Cock of Justice.
Yeah. I think we had heard all of that before, though.
Yeah, we have heard that before.
Because it's in the Field, is it? Or Reveal? One or the other.
Still funny.
Must be Reveal. Morning Sun.
Yes.
How lovely to see him singing the original vocal on that, the one that Rich told us about, and then Don Black changed it.
Yeah. And unless I've heard it wrong, was it originally How Do You Raise the Morning Sun?
Yeah, that's definitely what he was singing, wasn't it?
Yeah, he was singing that,
which you kind of go, now it's rate. It's changes it completely, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Like, how do you raise the morning sun? So how do you rate it? I'm like, wow, simple.
I think raise is better.
Yeah, I agree.
Because it's like, how do you get up in the morning almost?
Yeah.
How do you actually start a new day?
Yeah.
Was it Rich and Scott that wrote this one?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure they would prefer the original lyrics as well, considering they wrote it.
Yeah. But when you hear them talk about it, you kind of go, but when you hear it, it's just a slight word like that, you go, it does change the whole of the song. And then obviously the different opening as well. But yeah, I was like you, Lucy. I was like, oh, like hearing the different version.
It sounded incredible.
Yeah.
It just sounded so good. I mean, obviously he was in the recording studio, but there was something really powerful about it when you hear it.
Yeah,
totally just agree. Because sometimes when you hear people in the recording, I mean, maybe it depends on what track they use, but when you hear people in the recording booth, if they're just recording what they're doing in the recording booth, you hear this sort of flat sound, don't you? But It just sounded amazing.
Mm.
Just reminded me how much I like that song.
When he said, "Find a hit, fatty." always about the weight.
It never
isn't
leaves him that,
Yeah.
does
No.
it? Never
No.
leaves
Yeah.
him.
And there was
it was. Sorry,
there was another.
It was on.
Yeah, it was Million More
yeah.
Years, wasn't it?
Yeah, sorry, it was on this one. It
Yeah.
was Million More Years. Yeah.
Yeah, all the other songs were the same. It's just that one, which again I don't
Yeah.
think we've heard in a different song. I can't think where that
No, I don't
lyrics
think
would
so.
be anywhere else. So that's another
Yeah.
one for the list to ask Rob about.
Yeah.
You
Or
remember all these? Oh,
Yeah.
listen to the episode, remember them.
or we ask Rich and Scott.
Yeah, we can find out. We can at least ask.
Yeah.
Could be an interesting story.
Hi, I'm Robbie Williams, and you're listening to Robbie Williams Rewind with the Champions.
Going on to the Body's X Factor performance. Oh God, I kind of wish they hadn't included
Yeah.
that.
But what frustrated me was obviously we know the story that he couldn't open the door, which
Yeah,
kind of threw
but they
him.
didn't show that, did
it,
they?
and I thought that would have
Yeah.
just helped explain a little
That's
bit
right,
of
they
why
didn't
it
show
because you can see because they
Yeah.
rewind it a bit and you see him doing
Yeah.
this. But I thought
Yeah.
no, the reason is this is his first. He was
Yeah.
coming back after these couple of years, and
And they
biggest
screwed the
stage
staging
in,
up,
biggest
not
stage
him.
in kind of Britain,
Mm.
and they didn't open the doors to have
Mm.
to do that. So of course it's going to throw you off. And yeah, I felt for him that wasn't in there to
Yeah.
just provide a bit of context.
Mm.
Yeah, it was strange. I thought that.
Well, I mean, I guess it's like any pop star, but his entrance, as we said earlier on, is always everything. Because he always has the look, the stance. You know,
Yeah.
even if it's just a walk straight out, he would have been powered up,
Yeah,
ready for that, and then he couldn't do it.
yeah,
So I can imagine how that threw him completely off.
Yeah.
I mean, when you watch the performance, I thought he was moving around okay on the stage.
Oh yeah, he was, but you could
but he-
see his eyes were wide.
yeah,
Yeah, but he said, it was Rob. Robbie wasn't there.
yeah.
Yeah.
So he must have been petrified again. So that must have been really hard.
And when you hear him talk about it and then watch it, you can hear it. You can see it kind of being a Rob trying to go, right, what are Robbie's moves? It's
Yeah.
almost like, what can I do? I'll pull, and didn't necessarily feel at that time, but when you kind of go, okay, if
Yeah.
you didn't really feel that moment, you can see that you're thinking, right, what would Robbie do?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I think that's what Robbie's trying to do in that moment.
Yeah.
But must have been absolutely petrified.
Yeah.
And then Take That.
Yay. Back
Yay.
to Take That.
Mark Owen talking about welcoming Rob back to the band at any time.
Mm-hmm. Oh, because they're still best buddies.
They are. And then Rob starts talking about the circus tour. He says it's one of the best shows he's ever seen. I mean, crikey, what a production that was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just incredible show. So
It was interesting what he said about what David and Tim said.
With the
oh,
flip
yeah.
chart.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Lads, I'm still going to be joining Take That.
Yeah. But you can
But
imagine
tell us
that.
about the flip chart.
Yeah.
What was it? In case
Well,
people
everyone's
haven't
watched the
watched it.
documentary.
Go on.
there.
What do they say?
They'll earn more money solo.
Yeah, and he's like, no, not doing that. No.
You can just picture it, can't you? Of like, here's the number, Rob. Here's the number. Yeah. Flip it over. Here's the number. Yeah, I don't care. I still want to join. Take That.
Yeah,
I think he needed to do it at that time.
he definitely did. And then it kind of moves quite quickly from Take That into Rob talking a bit more about now, but there's obviously not a lot of now,
There isn't a
Yeah.
lot.
or well, even the past 10 years. But the quote he says about the fans is nice, isn't it? When he says, "The thing that has made me feel safe a lot of the time is no matter about the slings and arrows or how I feel about myself in my head, there's this incredible audience that comes and sees me. My audience has protected me through the years." Which is basically the speech that he gives at the end of his 25
Yeah.
show, isn't it?
Yeah. And he also says, we did that together. We understood each other and created a moment with each other that will remain etched in our souls and our spirit. And we forever get to share in that experience.
Yeah.
I mean, that is poetic, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's Robbie.
Yeah.
That is Robbie saying that. I mean, I just think it's really nice that he addresses that, because through the documentary, it's not mentioned that much. It's sort of
No.
Yeah.
it's sort of implied that he's got a big following and got fans. And I'm not, he like you say, he always mentions it in all his shows, so it's always there. But this is the first time in the documentary that he actually really talks about how much the fans mean to him. And I think for anybody listening to that podcast that is hardcore fans like us, I think it's really nice that that's in there, because we know that he co-creates his performance. It's not him just standing up and doing something. He does feed off what's going on in the show, in the audience.
Yeah, I think when he's in front of that audience, he appreciates them, particularly, the first 10 rows or whatever it might be. He knows it. And it's the same when he was on the podcast with you. He was talking to you very directly and saying he appreciates what you both do, what the fans that he knows do, and appreciate it. I can remember a few messages, because I used to always on up front say, I love doing polls on different songs, like and Rob would just get stuck into, we're talking about this song. And I can remember one of the lines was, he just said, guys, it means so much that you even know these songs. That we're talking about some of the B-side or rarer songs or album tracks. And I think, we do need a forum like that again, just to better talk about his music.
Yes, we do.
With Rob, or he needs to come back on this podcast again.
Yes.
Yes, he does.
He said he'd come back when the next album's coming out, so we'll hold him to that.
And then it does show clips of the past sort of 10 years, a little bit of Take the Crown, a little bit of footage in which we see Alan and Sarah, our friends who were on our Take the Crown episode.
Yes, in their matching ponchos.
Pink ponchos.
Yes, hands in the air.
That was at Dublin. And we can also see Angela, who was on our Progress episode from the Port Vale concert.
Yep.
And then Kelly, who was on our Let Me Entertain You tour episode. And next day you can just about see Petra, who has done a little snippet on our Port Vale episode.
Yeah.
Is that it? Is that everyone that we spotted? I think so.
Yes, it was lovely to see some of our friends, Robbie friends out there.
It was, yeah. But they kind of sped through the new stuff very quickly, and I felt it didn't really show what he does now. Did you think that, Chris?
Yeah, I thought there wasn't enough. It is almost like they ran out of maybe time or something, or we just didn't see enough recently. I mean, it's interesting that there's been a couple of clips of interviews with Robbie afterwards, I think through Netflix, where they go, the question's still unanswered. And some of them are, are you and Guy still friends? I mean, we see Guy in it, but he's very different to where he was 20 something years ago. So unless you're a fan like we are, you might not realize that. There's just certain things they don't properly explain as well. And I get it, there's time constraints, but I would have, same way we lost a bit of the swing, would have loved to see a bit more of Take the Crown, Heavy Entertainment, Christmas, that didn't get, and that's part of that story.
There's a lot, actually, Chris, when you put it like that. There's a lot, isn't there, that happened in that 10-year period that maybe it didn't fit. I don't know, but it would have been nice to have a little bit of a montage, in the right way, in keeping within the format of the genre that they created. It would have been nice to see a few of those moments just sort of flashing up, even if they did like a fast forward
even
through
just
it,
showing him
to acknowledge it,
enjoying his career now and being in a better place.
Yeah.
Yes. Because you saw the family side.
Yeah.
So you saw the family man, you saw the guy that's clean and sober and happy, but you didn't necessarily see the professional equivalent of that as well that sits alongside it. So, yeah.
I really like the sort of the last couple of quotes from him where he says there's acceptance and love for me. So this is him talking about himself.
Yeah.
And that he's on his way to being happy. I think that has been a process for him, watching that has, as you said, emptied out that rucksack for him. And I know he said Netflix just happened to just knock on his door at the right time, and there's an interview I watched recently where he said, I thought I just needed this for the wind of my sails for my third act of my career, but actually I think he needed it more than for his career. I think he needed it for himself, just to kind of go, actually, I just need to get rid of that and accept it and be okay with it and accept where he is and who he is. So I think as a fan, that's great to now see that, he is in a much better place and he's happy.
Yes, absolutely. And of course, we see Teddy singing a song at the end
how beautiful.
on the piano, sounding quite amazing.
Written by her.
Yeah.
Robbie looking proud.
So I think at some point we're going to see them on stage together.
Yeah. He said he wants to,
Yeah,
hasn't he?
yeah,
I think that's part of the plan.
Yeah, he told the Australian press conference that he basically is his way of getting permission from the wife to get Teddy on stage in the future, is just sort of slowly introduce Teddy to the public.
Yeah.
And then how like sweet at the end when they're all crying when he's got to go.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm.
And I don't know if you've seen the Tyson Fury Netflix.
No, I haven't watched that yet.
No.
Ending of that very similar.
Oh.
Yeah, really interesting that, he sort of retires and then realizes, do you know what? I'm a boxer and I need to, and he tries to do this, be at home dad, but then ultimately he wants to go back and fight. And it's a very similar scene in that documentary at the end where he's going away and the kids are crying and upset. And yeah, it's very, very similar.
Oh, okay.
But I wonder if they're two quite similar people as well, in that they need to have a purpose. I think they're both saying, both documentaries, they need a purpose. Rob says, I need to have that purpose. And how can you go from performing to that amount of people to, selling millions? I think he said 100 million records on his last thing. He corrected someone.
Yeah.
To doing that, it's different, so that's his purpose. That's always what he's known. So, and if you get that much love back, why wouldn't you? If you know that you mean so much to so many people and you can make so many people happy, why wouldn't you want to go and do that?
Absolutely. And I think he said to us on the interview, didn't he? Daddy goes to work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's realised that's part of what he needs to do. He needs to always be doing something, and we know that he's always got multiple projects on the go. So yeah, it's good that he's like you said, I'm on my way to being really happy.
Yeah.
It's different now. What a joy! What a glorious adventure! It's nice to hear him reflecting like that positively.
Yeah.
And it was nice seeing the band huddle at the end with Danosh and Jerry and everyone.
Yeah.
Yes.
The little backstage clips from the O2.
Yes. Along with Guy.
Yes.
Not everyone would have necessarily spotted him, but he was there because we spoke to him, actually. As we were wandering out from the O2, he was watching it from the sound desk, and he kind of wandered out. Not many other people saw him, and we were like, oh, there's Guy. So we immediately went over and had a chat. So yeah, he was there.
Yeah. And just a little side note of something that I did like was seeing the lady who packs his suitcases. Because it's something I've actually spoken to Matt about in the past. I wonder who it is that actually does his packing. Has he got a butler, or who is it?
So the question's got to be, would you let Matt do that for you?
No.
And whenever you get to somewhere on holiday, whatever he's packed is what you've got to wear.
No, that wouldn't work well.
What I did like was the fact that she was in there packing, I think it was 1, 2, 3, maybe even 4 massive cases, and all the Vuitton jackets and stuff were going in there. And then the shot of the guy taking the case out of the car, he took one case out of the car, put it in the car and closed the boot. And I was like, nah, there was 4 or 5 up there.
Yeah.
Rob doesn't travel with one case.
Yeah.
So, but who's watching for continuity? Not me.
Exactly.
But it was a lovely ending. Yeah. Lovely ending. Like you, Chris, the resounding feedback and questions that we got from everyone who's commented on it to us was, we wanted more.
Yeah.
But as Joe said, he had, what, were they 50 minutes or 1 hour? He had 4 lots of
50.
4 lots
of.
of.
Yeah, but the last episode was only 40 minutes.
Oh dear.
Could have done another
Short
10
change.
minutes, surely.
Yeah. But I mean, maybe people are listening to this that haven't watched it. Maybe everyone has watched it. But if you're a new Robbie fan, you're learning about Rob. A lot happened in the past 10 years. So go and look at it.
Yeah.
Go and look at what he did in the past 10 years, because he's, had an incredible career in the past 10 years.
Stadium tours and lots of albums. Yeah.
Surpassed Elvis in terms of the number of albums that he's sold in the UK.
Well, number one albums, not units sold. Yeah.
So that's still quite an accolade.
Oh, it is. Yeah, but don't get into an argument with someone on social media about that.
No,
because I've done that before.
No, I don't do that. Yeah, like you do that.
Yeah.
But I guess as well, from a narrative point of view, you know, is it entertaining for people who aren't massive fans like us to see all the good stuff and kind of go, you know, do people want to see kind of that journey of visit it, and then here's the happy ending, but they don't want an episode of happy ending. They want it short. You know,
right.
Me being a cynic is that, you know, trying to think of it from telling a story that actually we've got we're here, and then it's the lows, and then actually we've got back here. I think the thing that I reflected on it recently was we could be very easily watching this about someone who overdosed and died. Do you know what I mean? It could be that. Typically, when you see these things, it is the sad story of, and I'm just so glad.
Like
and
a
great,
Kurt Cobain type.
Yeah, and you sort of go,
documentary.
Isn't it great that actually there is a happy ending, and Rob's in a much better place. You know, it could have quite easily be a not happy ending.
Yeah,
you know,
exactly.
I know watching this retrospectively.
And that's, the best thing.
It is. So, just before we wrap up this episode, make sure you subscribe to the podcast so you don't miss out. And also, Lucy and I would really appreciate it if you can leave us a star rating. You can do this on both Apple and Spotify podcasts. We would also love it if you could write us a short review, and you can do this on Apple. Don't forget, you can check out our episode notes for each episode and links to all tracks and videos at robbiewilliamsrewind.com. You can also email us at email@robbiewilliamsrewind.com. Please also follow and chat on our social channels. It's at RewindRobbie on Twitter, Instagram and TikTok. And you can also like and follow our Facebook page, Robbie Williams Rewind. And before we return to this episode, you might also consider sending us one of your own Robbie stories for the show. Just record a short audio clip on your phone and email it to us. Please check the website for more details. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Robbie Williams, and you're listening to Robbie Williams Rewind with the Champions.
So I've got a question for all of us before we finish that I've just thought of.
Okay.
It's not in the notes, so hopefully Lucy lets me do this.
Right.
What's your biggest insight or learning, surprise? What's the big thing that sticks with you from the whole documentary? Probably quite a tough question.
Yeah,
I don't know whether I have an answer.
That's why you asked me first.
Yeah, exactly.
I think even knowing Rob and Robbie as well as I do, or I thought I did, I think seeing some of that footage from 20-something years ago, particularly the one where he's talking to camera in the blue Adidas 74, like how he was really crying out about then, and I just don't think he got it. Or that his management team was supportive, but I just don't think he was, he was allowed to kind of feel like that, if you like. I don't know. It's hard to put into words, but I think for me, it's kind of a wow. Do you know what I mean? I think he's incredible. And there was times when I'd walk away from a gig buzzing, and it's quite sad that he was in a bad place, and I don't know if you felt this, but I think the Leeds bit, and he's got that huge tour, which I saw 5 nights in Milton Keynes.
Oh, you went to all 5?
I went to all 5. I booked out a cottage place there, and I had a break on the Sunday. My mum came down. It was really nice. We went out for the day, but yeah, different friends came at different days. But part of me is, where his fans are part of that problem. We're talking about it, and you kind of go, oh my God, it's horrible that he felt this way. And you sort of go, I was there and I attended it. Yeah. So was I feeding, it's a hard thing to get your head around. You kind of watch it feeling sorry for him. And again, glad of where he is now, but you sort of think, hang on, by being a fan, was I feeding into that? Yeah. That huge tour. And I know that's quite a strange thing to think about, but it is just that, were we making it better or worse for him?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think for me, it's kind of to answer your original question, Matt, as I've gone off on a tangent, is I think to have that insight into what really was going through his head, but also to see those magical moments of him writing some of the songs that we love so well as well.
Yes.
So seeing that songwriting process.
Yes.
I think probably all of us got a lot from that versus hopefully sort of casual watchers will go, oh, okay, kind of as you said earlier, he does write his own songs, but I think for us who really know the music so well, to see those sorts of different lyrics and see how something starts, that was nice as well, to be able to see that.
Yeah.
Cool. And Lucy?
Oh,
Try not to waffle like I did.
It's all right.
I'm just buying you some more time, Lucy. That's what it was.
Yeah, but I was listening to you. Well, yeah, for me, it would probably be seeing him writing the songs. Yeah. Writing Karma Killer, singing a bit of Morning Sun, the family coach on the yacht.
Yeah.
All those little snippets I just found really, just loved them.
Yeah.
I suppose it's not something I've really learned though.
No, because you were already aware of a lot of that.
Yeah, but to see it.
So something that surprised you that you didn't know.
Well, the state he was in probably in 2007 with the blog that he did.
Yeah.
That was probably something I learned that I probably didn't really.
Yeah, I don't think anyone would have known that. I don't think, there was just the wilderness years, wasn't it, where we saw him maybe pop up occasionally, but yeah, it's quite sad to think that's the place he was in back then.
I think I was probably similar to you two in terms of we did know a lot of the stories. Maybe we hadn't seen them on video. We'd heard quite a few of them. I think for me, what came through was his support network that he had actually, and how important, and we've always known that that's been there. His management have always been so supportive and so kind, and just, they've had his back. And I think that's the thing that we kind of knew, but it kind of came back through to me, is that they were really looking after him.
Yeah.
And he was fortunate. Obviously, he had some bad times with management in the early days.
Yeah.
And then, I think they've been instrumental in helping him through it. Obviously, they took him to rehab. They intervened a few times, and that helped him. And then I think the other thing was, you said earlier, Chris, purpose. That came through to me, the fact that actually it all boils down to the fact that it doesn't matter how many millions you've got or not got, you need a purpose. And he's found his purpose, and it's being a creative songwriter and entertainer and, all the other things that he's doing. So he has purpose and he's found it. And that I thought was quite lovely that came out. Yeah. And obviously seeing what a family man he is, I think, of course, they've got a lot of help. We know that. But they really do connect with those kids, and they've got a great relationship with them, and they're bringing them up, in as normal a way as they possibly can, given the circumstances that they've got. So that was nice to see a little bit of inside view of that.
There's a lot of love in that family.
Yeah.
I set myself a task, and then it was too hard, but maybe it's not to do now, but for people to think about for you is, I was like, right, if I could rename any of the parts, any of the episodes with a Robbie song, but not necessarily from that era. Okay, it doesn't have to be from the era, but could you have a song that kind of fits kind of what happens in that episode? It's harder than you think, but something to maybe challenge yourself with. I started it, and I'm just like, when you get through them, but there was one where I was like, Chemical Devotion, I think would fit quite well.
Oh yeah.
But you start to go through it, and you sort of go, oh, but yeah, it's a fun game to play. So I'll set that for your listeners to. Okay, if you could rename them, not necessarily from what song was featuring like that. It's if you think about the episode, which song would best describe that episode, that part.
That's a really good challenge, Chris.
Like
so
that.
Listeners, we want to hear from you. What would you do? How would you rename those episodes with Robbie tracks? There's a lot to pick from.
Exactly. I think that was my problem as I was scrolling through my iTunes and all my saved music. I'm like,
300?
It's over 300.
Over 300.
It's nearly 400.
Yeah, that's a lot. Chris, thank you for joining us on the show. It's been great to talk through the Netflix documentary with you, and it's been lovely to hear some of your stories and hear about your memorabilia and hear about your fandom for Robbie. So yeah, thank you for helping us.
Thank you
go
both
through it.
for inviting me on. It's been an absolute pleasure to talk about Robbie, the documentary, and thank you both for this everything you do. It's I often have you on the trip to work in the morning, which is about 2.5 hours. So normally fits a nice kind of by the time I get to work. But yeah, it certainly helps start my day in the right way. So thanks for everything you do, and I hope Rob will be on a few more times over the next couple of years, so we can sort of see you both chat to him again.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you, Chris. That means a lot.
Yeah, it does. So everyone, thanks for listening. Our next episode will be an interview with Tom Longworth, Rob's guitarist. So be sure to subscribe so that you don't miss that one.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
Yeah. He gives us a run for our money on that one, doesn't he?
He does.
Yeah. Cheeky chappy, Tom is. It's a good fun interview, that one. So thanks then, Chris.
Thanks.
Hopefully we'll see you on the road at some point soon.
Yes. Yeah, very soon, hopefully.
All right.
All right.
See ya. Bye.
Bye. Bye.
Robbie Williams Rewind.